What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the show. Today, I have Aaron of Welcome Home Vintage, real OG in the game. Today's episode is an OG episode. He started selling vintage in the 90s. He even had a vintage store in the 90s in Eugene, Oregon. Currently resides in Portland. He has been selling on eBay for over 20 years. And I think his account that he's currently on, he said he had 60,000 sales on. That's a lot of items sold on eBay. We get into lots of eBay talks, lots of talks about the business in general. OG stuff. It's a good one. So get stoked, okay? Before we jump into this episode, I want to give a shout out to some of the new and existing Patreon members, okay, guys? You should go follow every single one of these people, and thank you for being legends and supporting this show, because it means a lot. Your support is how I can actually continue to do this. So go follow at Again Garments, follow at True Heart Vintage, follow at Aaron Stardust, and at Sound Plus Vintage Dry Goods. Everybody else who supports the Patreon, I appreciate you guys. It means the world to me. If you want to support the Patreon, go click the link down below. And without further ado, we're just going to jump right into this episode.
Vintage clothing by the rack, yeah. Just check out my Insta, how you gon' argue with that? Everything you see I manifest. I'm an architect, I think I'ma run it back. We got vintage clothing by the rack. Just check out my Insta, how you gon' argue with that? Everything you see I manifest. I'm an architect, I think I'll have some of that.
All right, Aaron, welcome to the show, man. Thank you for hopping on with me.
Absolutely.
So you've been in this for a long, long time. Before me, like we were talking off camera and you were saying probably from the same era, but like I grew up in it, but my real jump into like the business of it wasn't until like early 2000s probably. So, we want to know like how you got started. How did vintage become a thing for you, and like how you started selling?
So I'll tell you, it's like this. I met this dude, my buddy Forrest, and he was like, hey man, like, have you ever been to like thrift stores just to find cool stuff like shirts and whatnot? I'm like, not really. He's like, let's just go to these thrift stores, and I'm looking for these crazy 70s shirts. And that was kind of how it started, right? And then one thing led to another, and I was going to this vintage shop in Eugene, Oregon, where I was living at the time. And this lady that owned the shop, she was like, hey, when you're out there hitting these shops, if you find stuff that doesn't fit you, and I can sell it at my store, I'll pay more. That was it. Like, off and running. Like, literally, that's as simple as that.
So like what year was this? What years?
96, 97.
And
Like,
your homie, your
my
homie just
homie was
really
a little
wanted
bit
to like
older.
wear the shit. It wasn't for selling
Yeah,
at
we're
first.
all about the Da Vinci shirts, the Mr. Californias, like that kind of era of vintage. And he had no interest in the business. He was just like, thought the shirts were cool. And like, for me, like, I agree with them, but then there was something about what this woman said to me, like, I'll pay more and like, you could make money. And I was like, okay, like, I like that. Like, so that was it, man. That was it.
Yeah, totally. So you started hitting all these stores, buying her greatest stuff, and just bringing bagfuls to
in
her,
those
and she would
days,
cop.
it was like, there was no eBay. There was not even an internet, really. So it was like, if I could buy it for $3, $4, and she'd give me 12 or 15, that was like a win, So that's how I learned. That's how I came up. I wasn't really making any money, but, I was making some money, but not really. But I was learning was what I was doing.
Yeah, was she teaching you? Was she kind of like
Yeah,
filling
but
you
like,
in?
about like, suits, slacks, dress shirts. I mean, she didn't know anything about the Japanese market. I mean, that all came later. But I learned about like, this is gabardine, this is silk, this is that kind of stuff. That's what I learned first off.
Yeah. So where'd it go from there? Were you working other jobs at this time?
I worked I've only had one job, like literally one job. And that was working in a place called Mozzie's in Eugene, a pizza place. I was like the prep cook, pizza cook, dishwasher. And then I was doing the vintage thing on the side. And then once I went full blast in the vintage thing, I put in my 2 weeks, and I haven't had a real like job since then.
That's a pretty good record, man.
I've never had a job interview. That's a fact. I swear to God, I've never had it.
It's safe to say you have no current resume.
Oh no, I'm not even employable, dog. Like if I put in a resume and they're like, "You're gonna work for like 3 decades."
That's
serious.
amazing.
Like,
that's an accolade.
I'm not employable unless I'm in the vintage business, So
not many people can claim that, dude. I've gone through a lot more jobs than you.
I figured coming up around like your dad in the business, you would have just jumped right in, but you like had a bunch of other jobs.
Oh yeah, because I didn't want. I don't know if I ever really thought I would want to be in it in the beginning.
You're like, we don't know if we want this for us. Okay, I got you.
Well, I
can see that.
He was like, you should be a lawyer, you should be a doctor. That was, that's
don't
what every
be the
parent
rag
says.
business. This is lame. This is terrible. Don't do this, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't wish this upon my offspring.
Right. This is hard work. This is hard work. I got you. Okay.
But I worked like same as you, hospitality, restaurants, all kinds of bullshit. But then until I
restaurant work, the
jumped
easiest to get into, and all my buddies like worked at the same restaurant, and you got free food and like smoke weed and your breaks. I mean, it was as a young guy, it was awesome. You know what I mean? It was a great job.
So how long did it take you to get to this jump full in point, and like what was that?
The full in point was, so the lady that pulled me in, like, buy stuff, she had this little fitting shop in Eugene. Her name's Savon. And like, we're not in contact, but I know she's still around. Anyways, she hit me up with this dude in LA that like, was a player in the business. And then she's like, this guy buys jeans. He buys all this different stuff. And so I hit him up, and he's like, okay, here's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for Nike. I'm looking for Levi's. I'm looking for all this different things. So the first time I hooked up with him, I kind of just bought I didn't even know what he was looking for, right? So I just bought when he said to buy, and I had like a pinwheel Nike windbreaker top and bottom with the pinwheel tag that I got like for, nothing, 50 cents. And he's like, I'm going to give you $100 for this. So at the time I was like,
boom.
That was it.
Hell yeah.
I mean, I'm telling you, it was like that one moment, and I was like, okay, so there's something to this. And this was like 95, 96. I mean, we're talking a long time ago. And that same set today is, probably like $500-$600. But at the time, it was a lot of dough. And like that I think that just sparked it, dude. That just set me off on this path.
So this person was sort of middling it to the Japanese market.
So his name is Ben Baskins. I don't know if you ever heard of Ben Baskins. He was in the game way early. He got out of the game, and we're still friends. He was a player early, like, early 90s Rose Bowl, white guy, American guy, but somehow had a partnership in Japan. So he like had a part ownership in a store, so he could pay those Japanese prices, And I'm sure he underpaid me on a lot of stuff, but he also schooled me up on all stuff. So I'm not mad at him.
Hell yeah. Well, I mean, if he pays you $100 for something you had no idea about, and that's
he get into said it's nothing, right? But literally that one piece, I remember it so vividly, just being like, oh, okay, there's something to this, right? That was like really kind of where it went off.
So what else was on his list at the time?
I mean, of course, Levi's, 501s, Nike. In those days, Nike was so big, but then like you wanted sweatshirts, you wanted Japan, like a lot of the same stuff we buy today, but the main focus was used Levi's and vintage Nike stuff. Sneakers, t-shirts, sweatshirts, and windbreakers. Windbreakers don't do shit anymore, but in those days the windbreakers were everything. You know
Yeah,
what I
we're
mean? The windbreaker.
talking the 80s, like the Windrunners and that vibe, right?
Yeah, but even like exactly the 70s, 80s, two-tone windbreakers, that was what they wanted at that time. You know, so any size, any color, any condition, you could sell them all day.
And they were heavily buying Jordans too, right?
Yeah, but I was more focused on the waffles because I lived in Eugene at the time, which is where Nike started. So I was like running these ads in the paper. I was like putting
No way.
flyers up. No, I was doing ads in the paper, flyers up on the running, like on Trees running trail. And I'd be putting flyers in people's like on their dash, like with the like under the windshield wipers. And I was getting calls, dude. I was like scooping stuff up all the time that way. Because no one was doing anything like that.
Yeah, that's fucking
crazy.
crazy, dude. So yeah, Nike's there. This is the beginning of the vintage boom. Like that era was when the Japan market started.
Yeah, they hadn't seen all the. They didn't know. They're like, oh, I got all that stuff. You know, I mean, it was. I was getting a lot of good calls.
That's a good sourcing tip. Just put some ads out and see who calls you. And people are probably going like, I've been working for Nike for 10, 15 years, 20 years. This shit's sitting in my basement.
Athletics West runners, or like, you know, I bought for famous people. I probably don't even remember their names. They were like, you know, not Prefontaine famous, but they were like on the Athletics West team. Like probably had like, you know, silver, gold medals. Me, I was just like, what's up? You know, I'm trying to get those T-shirts, and I don't care who you are. But they were probably like famous. They were probably famous as runners, man. In fact, here's a fun fact. Craig Virgin, you know who that is?
No.
You know, Craig Virgin, he's a famous runner. He wore the first pair of international Nike shoes in our international competition. He brought those into my shop at one time and tried to sell them to me. And this was before eBay, before the internet. And the only one was $1,000. And I was like, I'm like 18 years old. I'm like, that's too much money. My guys, there's spikes. I can't sell that. Those shoes are in like multiple books. They're probably worth like 25 grand now. But at the time, I didn't know what that was. And he would have let them go for $1,000, but I did pass. Yeah.
Fuck.
Right? This is crazy.
You never
man.
know, dude.
Yeah.
So what were some of the prices back then? Like what would you get for sneakers or a good pair of waffles?
So let's see. They broke it down to like, you had the red and gray label, the blue label, and what was called the orange label, which is the white and orange label. So like on the windbreakers, it would have been like 75 for the orange, 50 for the blue, and like 25 for the red and gray, right? But in those days, like I could come up on like 10 of those a day. You know what I mean? Like they were like all over the place at the thrift stores. So that was like a pretty lucrative, you know, you could make some good dough.
And those prices seem pretty good considering like even today's money, today's prices, like with inflation, those are high ass prices.
So like, and this was cash money because like this was like Japanese guys. And then if you got into the shoes, you know, it was less about the Jordans and more about the waffles and the running shoes. I mean, like the Jordans and like the you know, the, what do you call it? The basketball shoes were desirable as well, but I kind of slept on those because my focus was this track 70s, 80s stuff. And that's like what all the Japanese people at that time wanted. And less of the, you know, the I don't know, I guess like the, you know, the basketball stuff.
Did you ever find those Athletic West Champion sweatshirts?
I've had multiple of them. I did have one that was like gold with like the burgundy print, the rough cut print on the front, and then the rough cut print on the back, the one color. Yeah, I've had a handful of them.
Nice.
One of them I
Those are
sold, and like I regret selling a lot of stuff. Because
Don't we all?
Those days it was like, oh yeah, you want to get like $350 for a sweatshirt. That was crazy. And now that could be like a $2,500 sweatshirt, you know? So, but yeah, I had probably 3 or 4 of those sweatshirts in different colors.
Nice.
Because I was in Eugene was like the birthplace, you know, of all that stuff. So that stuff was just around.
Yeah, 100%. I've been down there. I mean, I never went down back in those days, and I don't really, back where we were, we weren't finding any of that kind of stuff, or at least a lot
it
of
wasn't
it.
up there really.
Yeah.
Probably wasn't even like past like, it was mostly like for the universities, so if you went beyond, especially for the United States, up into where you guys were in Canada, there probably wasn't a bunch of that stuff up there.
Yeah. So when did you get into eBay? I want to go deep into this eBay, because you probably were on there from the pretty early days, right?
I want to think that I got my first eBay account in maybe like 2000, or like maybe even earlier, maybe like 1999. And the early days, me and my buddy Brendan were like selling stuff on consignment for like another dealer. And then that's kind of how I learned eBay, because he was just like pumping us with all this stuff, and we were doing it like for a percentage, right? So the early days were just like crank, but really not making much money. And then as the years went on, like I learned like what was good, what wasn't good. And then I finally kind of like locked in my own thing, and I've had the same account. I don't know, I've probably had the same account since 2002, 2003. I got like 30,000 plus feedbacks on there. And I probably sold, on that account alone, I probably sold 65,000 items. So with all the accounts I've ever had, I would say it's easily over 100,000 pieces.
That's crazy.
Like, no exaggeration, like that, like easily, maybe 150,000.
Why were you selling this other guy's shit and not just selling the stuff you were picking?
He had an unlimited supply of stuff, and me and and like I didn't really know what I was doing. So like me and my buddy were like, yo, like this guy's got all this stuff, and like we're getting like, I think it was 35% of the sold price, but we can just sell it so fast. And so, and stuff was easier to get then, but it wasn't that easy. I mean, it wasn't like you go back 20 years and like it's just free. So it was still somewhat difficult to get the right stuff. And he had an unlimited supply. So we just cranked, and we were doing big numbers, 20,000, 30,000, 40,000 a month. But then when you do the year cut of that, slash the eBay fees, plus split it up between you and your partner, and then all the overhead, it's actually not that much. So I did that for a couple of years, and then me and him both just branched out our own.
And in the beginning too, it was a lot different than it is now, of course. eBay's been through so many iterations of changes and shit, but then it was all auction, right? There wasn't even an auction to do.
Auction. Auction. $9.99. You let it rip, dude. 7 days. So what you wanted to do is have it end about 5, 6 o'clock on a Friday, because that's like 8, 9 o'clock on the East Coast, right? Or like a Saturday. You didn't want it to end on a Tuesday or a Wednesday, because I don't know, there was something about like a Friday or Saturday that just somehow worked out best. At least that was my opinion.
Yeah, that's funny, because I've heard more modern takes on it. They say like a Thursday or a Sunday, because I don't know.
Everyone's got
Friday.
Theory.
Maybe the people are like partying. I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, like for me, but it had to be later in the day. Like you couldn't have it end at like 11 a.m. People are at work. You know what I mean? Or like they're like, so you had to have it where people were off work or like available to get on there.
Yeah, totally. And in those early days too, from what I remember, and probably you tell me your take on this, but the sell through was crazy. Like you would probably put up 100 pieces and you'd sell like 90 of them.
Oh, bro, we would sometimes list like 100 pieces in a day. I had people working with me, and we had this whole like system. And so there'd be piles of like 50 to 100 pieces, like and each pile was a day, right? And so like each day you had to ship out like 50, 100 pieces. Next day, 50, 100 pieces. And so there was just this, I remember days shipping out 120 pieces in one day. That was the record, like, which is now today, that would be psychotic. But in those days you just had to, because when they pay and it's sold, you have to ship, right? But now it's like when it's on a buy it now sort of deal, you might sell 20 things in a day, 30 things in a day. That's a good day. And those days, if all the listings in it at once, you might have sold, like you said, if you list 185 of them, sold.
Yeah.
And you got to ship them all out in one day. So
yeah,
that
totally.
was, that was no joke.
That's I remember it very well. I remember it, and it was most things would sell, and you could kind of just experiment. It was early, so there wasn't a lot of sellers. You could figure out what would sell. So what was shocking to you back then when you started to list all this stuff, and like things you maybe didn't know about that you're like, holy shit, this is worth crazy money. I had no idea, or like crazy sales that were happening, or.
I mean, it's funny because like when you ask me that, like now it's all like old news, right? Like all those things. But I'm trying to think back, like, I mean, like one of the early things that like I had no knowledge on that like I realized quickly was like Coogee sweaters. And this was in the 90s with like Tupac and like Biggie, you know. So I'd find this Coogee sweater, like maybe at the Goodwill, and I'd put it up for auction. I'm like, oh, maybe I'll get like 40, 50 bucks. Boom, 250. And I'm like, what? And it's just like to me, it was nothing, right? It was just like this corny ass sweater. So that was kind of a crazy one. And I'm sure there's some other ones I'm forgetting about, but yeah, it's like, it's crazy when you put something up for auction and you're thinking like, I'd be happy to get 20 bucks. And then it goes for like 200, 100 plus. You're like, ding, ding, pay attention. You know what I mean? And so I know there's some other ones I'm forgetting about, but I remember the Coogee being definitely one that I remember being like, okay, buy all these.
Yeah, totally. It's interesting. There was obviously like more demand versus the supply in those days because there was so many less people selling it. So you have more,
100%,
more percentage
100%.
Of people looking for it. Like there's obviously more people buying vintage today, but there's also so much more people selling it. So
absolutely,
the sell-through was just so good, and it was so simple, and that, like the eBay didn't really have an algorithm. It was like you just put it up, you put a title, someone's gonna find it, and they're gonna fucking buy it.
Yeah,
it was very
I didn't
simple.
know how it worked. I mean, like we just cranked it. My whole theory was just like post as much stuff as possible, like physically possible. Like just crank as much stuff as you can.
Yeah,
you know?
Totally. Do you remember some of the other sellers back in those early beginnings of eBay?
Well, I mean, you talk to my buddy David, Goodbye Heart. He probably didn't tell you this. He was retro dashware in those days. And He was one of the first guys. This is kind of how we met. He was one of the first guys that was selling the suits. Remember how the suits were like real popular, maybe like in 2003, 2004, 5, like 3-piece, like pinstripe, but not even really that old. They could have been like from the 80s or something. And he was like modeling them, and like no one was doing that. So he was doing like this like slick model shit, like rocking, like, you know, he had the hair. And like, I remember like I'd watch him. I'm like, yo, this dude's getting like 2 bills, 3 bills for these suits that are just junk. And I just kind of became like obsessed with his listings. And that's how we met. I hit him up and I'm like, hey man, your listings are amazing. Like you seem like a cool dude. Like, let's just meet up. And that's kind of how we met. So,
That's
I mean,
awesome.
that's one I could think of. I mean, there was probably a bunch of others, but something about, he was like one of now everyone models their stuff, but he seemed to be pretty early on that, especially for a guy. I mean, girls were modeling their stuff, but not a lot of guys were modeling the clothes they were selling.
Yeah. It was so early in e-commerce in general. Like the beginning of eBay was kind of like a catalyst for a lot of e-commerce in general, other people to sell online. And I feel like that whole era was like a discovery period of everyone going like,
yeah,
what's going to work? How are we going to show it? Are we going to do a fucking hanger on the wall? Are we going to do a lay flat? Are we going to model it? And then people took it to the extremes. Like now you have these women who like will wear like something that's totally irrelevant and just show their boobs, and you're like,
have you seen that there's a guy that sells military, I know you know what I'm talking about. There's a guy that sells military stuff that has like these young hot models that are like in like a bikini, but they have like a giant field jacket over top of their bikini. You're like, really, dude?
yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
I know,
I
for
forget
sure.
the guy's name, but he's all over the place, dude. Like,
I
he's
hope
selling
he's getting great money. Come on.
No, but like, here's the thing. Like, I've stopped. I'm like, oh, she looks hot. Let me stop on this. But it's like a men's coat.
Yeah, totally.
It's incredible, dude.
Everyone's got to have their gimmick.
Yeah, exactly.
I remember Jesse. We toyed with all kinds. Jesse was doing it before me, and he toyed. He basically.
Is that your brother?
Yeah. He started mostly just selling T-shirts on eBay, and then later was doing like other vintage pieces. But it was just always T-shirts. It was like just put as much T-shirts as you can because you're getting like, I think we started $9.99 listings or something, And you'd always, if you got $20, you'd be stoked,
And these were like, you were getting them cheap, right? I mean, you probably had your dad's connection, like you're probably getting them for nothing or hitting the thrift stuff or whatever.
Yeah, like we had connections. I mean, it wasn't, like you said, it wasn't free, and you still had to dig hard, but
oh yeah, of course.
There was very less discerning grades then too. You'd be like, this is an 80s t-shirt with like a promotional print. It's going on eBay. This is like
oh yeah, you were just like, it's an old t-shirt, just put it on.
Just put it on. Like it didn't matter. Right. Now you got to be way more picky with what you're doing, I think, because it's again the competition.
Do you remember? I remember a day when single stitch wasn't a thing. If someone says that single stitch, I was like, what are you talking about? You know what I mean? As far as the t-shirt goes,
100%.
Like that wasn't a thing. Single stitch was the back of the Levi's pocket, dude. That's all single stitch meant.
Totally.
So like once that whole thing came out, I was like, what? What are you guys talking about?
And now I remember. Do you remember who first told you about it, or like asked you about it, or how you even?
I think. I mean, I remember it had to be Home Dog down in L.A. I feel like the dude with the round 2 or round 1, whatever that guy's name is. I feel like that might
Sean
be like
Witherspoon.
Yeah, I feel like that might have been the first guy that I maybe heard mention that. And then I started hearing other people talk about it. And I still didn't know what the hell they were talking about. And I'm still to this day mad about it because this is what I always said. All the t-shirt manufacturers did not get a memo or a letter in the mail the same damn day saying you can no longer make a t-shirt with single stitch. It has to be double stitch tomorrow. Right? So that whole dating process is bullshit. Like it is a good reference point, but it's not 100%.
Yeah. And then that's such a good point, because how did it then like translate through the whole industry where everybody's like switching it to double? Because it did, sure, it happened over 10 years or something that it switched.
Yeah,
but it's
it wasn't overnight. It was over a minute. Like it took years.
Totally.
But all of a sudden it's like, oh, it's not single stitch. That's trash. I can't even just get that out of my face.
Yeah.
Sure. Like, bro, what are you talking about?
I can remember the first time that anyone ever told me that was one of my Japanese clients, and we were like talking about some piece they were going to buy, and they were just schooling me on some shit, and then they brought that up, the single stitch, and I was like, oh,
how long ago was that? Like, when was that?
Like not super long. Like I'm talking, like, I guess now we're talking 10 years ago. So like it's long enough, but it wasn't crazy
10
long.
years ago. 10 years ago was about when and again, like I just was like, what are you guys even talking about? Like I don't even, because in my day the tag was everything. You know what I mean? Like the tag told you everything you needed to know, because there wasn't any reprints, there wasn't any fakes, which is all of that now. But in the old days, you either knew it was old or it wasn't old. There was no in between.
Yeah, that we didn't need that extra identifier at all. It was just,
but they need it now because there's like 10 versions of one t-shirt. You know what I mean? Like, and so they kind of do need that. So I understand it. I just like coming up in our era or my era, whatever you want to call it, that wasn't necessary.
I've always lived by the motto, like, I need to know enough. I got to know enough to make the right decision on a garment when I find it. I don't need to know every fucking little thing about the thing, because my brain's going to be full with all this knowledge that I don't particularly need to hold up there.
Right.
And people take it very deep. Like, I was talking to one of my clients recently about like the fake wrap tees, and then he was like flipping it inside out, looking at like the sewn over stitch on the seam on the inside, like how far it went.
You mean fake like it's a reproduction, or it's like the bodega fakes from the 90s that everybody wants?
No, like a reproduction trying to fake people over.
There's like hardcore fakes of like 90s or okay. I haven't seen any of those.
Yeah, I had a few just because I bought a couple just to like examine and see.
Oh, but you knew they were fakes. Like you didn't.
I knew they were fake. I didn't get tricked on them, but I have been tricked on shirts for sure. I've been tricked. I bought a fucking fake.
It's good to buy them, and you can look them inside and out, know what you're looking at, so you know what to look for.
and like you got to compare the two. You can't hold it all. You have to see them both side by side to understand it. You can't know enough to. It's hard to tell if you don't see them side by side.
If you've never seen the real one, the fake one's going to look real to you. You're like, oh, why would this be fake? You know what I mean? Like, you don't know the difference.
And if all you're going by is single stitch, you're getting duped over 100%.
shit makes me crazy. Anyway, so move on.
That's
Move on from singles.
Yeah, totally. So, you know, you're still doing eBay. You said you've had this one account since 2003, which is fucking crazy.
Oh, I've had a bunch of other accounts, though.
Okay,
like,
but has
others.
this account that you're still on ever been delisted or banned?
Hell no. I've been 100%. Like, dude, I'm like top rated, like gold star. Like when I call eBay, like a person calls me back in 30 seconds, and their name is like Jeremy, like not some dude from India. Like it's like you calling me. Like I take this shit so seriously. So and I maintain that. Like so if I get a payment, it's shipped that day, period. Like I don't wait till the next day, and that's how you have to do this to maintain that level. Like you have to treat it very seriously.
Yeah, good for you. Because we have had multiple shutdowns for multiple reasons. Mostly
they'll fuck you. eBay doesn't
they'll
play.
fuck you.
Like they will totally screw you.
Yeah,
they do like selling limits. You ever had those? Like, oh well, you're at your limit. You can't list more because like we're sure you're gonna, I don't know, sell a bunch of fake stuff or whatever their reasoning is.
Well, yeah, I think partly it's often because they're like, you're just not a good seller, and if you do too much sales, you're gonna get even worse in the rating system,
right?
Because you can't handle it. I mean, I have a limit on the account right now. I'm not gonna lie. I'll be straight up with you. Like our
how
eBay
much
account,
do you guys do on there? Do you guys sell a lot on there?
No, we don't really. We don't.
Right, because you don't crate a lot of stuff on there, so that makes sense.
No, I don't. But we had periods where we did, like up until about say 10, 12 years ago, from that early 2000s era, we were, and that was like a big chunk of our business.
Kind of the golden era of eBay was just like cranking, dude. You could get so much dumb money for stuff in those days.
And I think we had, we were consistently like in around the $30K a month range for like many years.
That's a solid month.
Yeah. So, and then we kind of like found other areas to run the business, and we just like let it like fade away.
Less
fees. And then we kind of like only would sell what we thought was really good for that market. Yeah, right for the Bay.
Totally.
But now I am kind of like relearning it because it's changed so much, and I want to understand it. I want to be able to do more on there and sell. To be honest, for me, like I'm a vintage guy. I love vintage. It's my passion. But like I want to start selling like regular crap on there that like
that's what sells good on there,
vintage.
Dude.
Yeah,
of course. No, absolutely. You just need to sell name brand stuff. Like I mean, like that's what sells great. You know what I mean? It's not really a vintage website. It's just like a all website. You know what I mean? So if you need to sell whatever, that's what's up, I think.
Yeah. So that's a good segue into something I had here, which was I want to know your top 5 things that you like to sell. My hands are all black. I was doing fucking piping today.
Wash those shit, dude.
So yes, I want to know your top 5 things that you love to sell. So like maybe like the easiest things that you think will sell on there. What do you love to find?
Man, so I'm a sucker for coats and jackets, right? Like leather jackets, Gore-Tex jackets, goose down jackets. I mean, those are always like North Face, Patagonia. You know what I mean? Like I love that stuff. That always sells. Any of those name brand Arc'teryx, Patagonia, all that stuff sells great. I love boots, like good quality boots. Like Danners, Red Wings. Any of that kind of stuff's great. I've learned over the years, brand and name makes it easy. If you have a killer t-shirt, but there's like no brand, it's just like a dope t-shirt, no one's going to find that because there's like a million t-shirts. But if you got like a specific Red Wing boot, specific style, specific color, specific like size, someone will find that. So the more specific it is, for me, I found that I have a lot better luck with.
Yeah, I've been learning that lately as well, that it's a search function. Like when there's
exactly.
things that will sell on eBay because someone's going to be searching for it. Now, something that's going to sell in a physical store or say at a market couldn't be the most random artistic folk art thing in the world.
Bizarre print makes no sense.
Yeah. But no one's going to find that on eBay or probably online in general because it's just not accessible to them and they don't know what they're looking for. So you have to...
Yeah, if you ever type in on eBay vintage t-shirt, there's literally like 1 million hits. So if you have some random, I mean, this is a little bit more specific, but if you have some random t-shirt that's cool, no one's going to find it because it's like on page 296. You know what I mean? Like no one has the patience to go through all those pages. So it's just lost in the sea. No one's going to find it. But a store, they're just going through the rack and they're going to find it.
Exactly. And that's, for example, like that shirt, what are you going to list it as? Like vintage art, cool, graphic, funky shirt. Like there's nothing to list it as.
Yeah.
You
50,
got your
50,
shirt.
Yeah.
Your shirt's EPMD, strictly business, fucking tour shirt or whatever you want to
call
that.
Rap.
Yeah.
No, there's guys that have all those searches saved, but if it's just like some art tee, like, or some, maybe it's like a local something, never found. Like literally, like it'll just like sit up there forever and never get purchased. That's been my experience.
The tip here is don't waste your fucking time on shit like that because it's just a wasted listing and it's a waste of time.
I pulled all my t-shirts off eBay. Look, because I've been saving them. I'm starting a retail store coming up in soon. And I was just getting like t-shirts that I knew were like $50 shirts, $75 shirts. People were giving me offers for like $15. And I'm like, it was like 250 shirts, just all of them gone. Was the best decision I ever made.
Nice.
I mean, they're just in bags right now, but eventually I'll get the money that I want,
Yeah. And I've heard too that eBay, they use your sell-through rating, your sell-through percentage, which your sell-through percentage is if you have 100 things on fucking eBay, you sell 10, that's a 10% sell-through. It's pretty straightforward. They use that metric to like promote your listings, and the higher sell-through rating you have, the more they'll promote your listing. So if you have tons of shit that's not selling, you're gonna have a low sell-through, and you'll sell less shit in general.
Yep. One trick to refresh your stuff is to end your listings, and then instead of relisting them, you click sell similar, which will basically bump them up with a new item number as if it's a new thing. So if you have an eBay store where you have I have 1,000 plus free listings a month, I'll just end hundreds of things at the end of the month and then sell similar, and don't even change like the price or anything. It just like refreshes them as a new listing. So that's like
never heard that one. Never heard that one. I like it.
No, it works.
Because the theory too is that eBay rewards consistency of posting. So if you have nothing to post, you could like end and sell similar and have shit go up because they want to know that you're posting.
Something you've had up for years, but it to the system, it seems like a brand new post. So I learned that one a while back, and as soon as I started doing that, sales went up consistently. So you should use it. Or whoever's watching this, use it. Come on, it's free.
That's awesome. So, did you ever have a store before? Did you have a store in Eugene back in the day?
Oh yeah, no, I had a little shop in Eugene. It was called West Side Vintage, and it was actually in the west side of Eugene, and that was in like '96, baby, which was like when the whole like Tupac West Side that was. And so I was like, I'm in the west side of Eugene. The whole west side thing is cool. Follow with the West Side Vintage, and it was this tiny. I mean, we're talking like 400 square feet. I mean, tiny little shop. Had that for 2 years. Didn't make a nickel, but learned a ton. And that was best decision. It was a very good decision.
So what did you learn then? What lessons came out of that?
I learned like, what the fuck did I learn? I learned a couple things. One, I don't want to be in a store all day. That's what I learned. And that was the most important thing. I didn't want to be in the store all day. But, it's like I learned that, like, if you're going to do it, you got to do it, like, in the right location. You got to do it big. You can't just, like, do some tiny, like, little, rinky-dink shit and think it's going to work. You got to go big. Because I paid the bills, but, like, I didn't make any money. But the main thing that bugged me is I was just, like, camped out in this little shop all day. and I just wanted to be out like hitting the shops and like running around buying stuff, So I closed it down, and that was the main thing. Was like I just want to be out buying.
It's hard to be hustling when you're stuck in a store. That's an early time, man. That was when like vintage was not very accepted among
pre-eBay. I didn't even have the internet. Like I had like a phone with a cord on it. You know what I mean? Like connected to the wall, dog. Like I didn't even have a cell phone. Like this was early.
Yeah, no, a lot of very different times. I remember there was a vintage store in my town growing up called like Blue Moon. It was like a head shop, so they sold like pipes and papers and like some Levi's and some mixed shit,
bongs and shit. And
yeah,
but they also had clothes too. Oh, that's interesting.
They had some clothes, but it was very like hippie 70s vibes, and none of us were into that because we were like listening to grunge music and shit, So I don't think any of my friends ever shopped
like hip hop and whatnot. Yeah,
exactly. No one was fucking shopping there. So tell us about this store now. What's your plan here? What's the new store you're gonna do?
So my partner and I are. He's been in the mid-century game for a long time, ephemera game, antique business, and so we're partnering up. We're gonna do finished clothing, furniture, like handbills, posters. We're calling it Yellowstone Vintage Company, and we've got the space already. So we're looking at like early summer. We just got to build it out. We already got like most of the merch. We got most of like the fixtures. So it's just a matter of like just doing it. You know what I mean?
So you're already in this space, yeah?
Oh yeah. So we've been in the space since November.
So is this where you're running your eBay stuff, and you're gonna have both in there? You're gonna have a front. You're gonna block it off for like a back room and a front room.
It's basically split in half. Like one half is retail, one half is online, and there's an upstairs where it's all storage. And then we have another offsite storage space where we take all the photos and do all the processing. And the key part about that, as you know, if you do the processing and photographing at one space and then have everything over another space, that eliminates the death pile. Because in this business, the death piles just pop up. Death pile there, there's a death pile there. You know what I mean? Like you can't get rid of them, dude. You can't get rid of them.
So how do you operate that? That seems super weird to me.
So let's say me and you just like went to a sale, bought a bunch of stuff. We drive it to the storage locker, take everything in the storage locker, separate it into piles, and then from there it gets photographed. And then from photograph, it then gets moved back to the other space, and then it gets listed, and then it gets hung up.
So nothing in your operation space is ever a death pile. It's all for sale, either in the store or online.
It's all already been photographed and listed. It won't even hit the hanger or the rack until it's with those processes. So at the other space, the storage locker, it's got piles everywhere, as you can imagine. Like this is really what we're in the business of: pile management. Rather than his business, we're in pile management or pile movement. That's like really what we do, right? You just keep moving shit around, dude.
That's so funny.
Shit around. Yeah. So my buddy came up with that.
Was this by design then? You actually thought this out?
So I'm like a total like ADD, just like pile, like madness. And my buddy is all about order. So he's like, dude, we can't have these piles. We can't have these piles. And I'm like, all right, well, come up with a system, dude. So he came up with a system of like, we sort it all here, we photograph it all here, and then once it's ready to be listed, we move it, and then it's like everything's got like a number and it's orderly, and that's just worked out great, dude. So far so good.
That's awesome.
So no death pile. The only death pile is at the Story Center, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah. The death pile is the bane of every reseller's existence. It's
everyone in this game, even the young bucks, they know all about what a death pile is. Trust me.
Death pile sucks your will to live. It kills your motivation.
If they don't know what a death pile is, they haven't been doing this long enough, dude.
You don't pick hard enough if you don't know what a death pile is.
Because you're just like, I know this is something, but I just don't want to think about it right now. That goes in the death pile. Or like, I gotta do some research on that. That goes in the death pile, right?
100%. See, I'm in this smaller warehouse now. I bought a building, and I'm in this smaller warehouse. It's only like 1,200 square feet. So I don't even
Okay.
have the option anymore. I have to like, when I get stuff in, I got to process it. I can't let things sit in death piles because like my warehouse will get so bottlenecked so fast
Yeah.
that it like
Immediately.
forces me to deal with it. You know, it either goes to my store, we put it online, or I wholesale it, or I do something with it right away, or it's like, it's
So
a
you
fucking
have
death pile.
three avenues. You have like the retail store, the online, and then you have Rose Ball. Do you have a fourth avenue? Or
Well, we wholesale. Yeah,
like
basically
Japanese or
those.
whoever?
Yeah, like I'll sell to some other local stores, some friends of mine, or I'll like do some bundle deals or whatever I want to.
Sure. Absolutely.
So,
If you're getting
yeah.
it cheap, yeah, why not?
Yeah. I mean, we don't have a
wanna mo-
lot to wholesale anymore because you know, it's harder to find good stuff, and then the retails need like quite a lot of product, you know?
Yeah, you want to get all the money. You don't want to get half the money. What all that money, dude?
Hell yeah. And the wholesale game now has changed so much because everyone loves to call you for wholesale, but they're like, can I buy wrap tees for wholesale? And you're like, no, sorry, we don't
Absolutely
have that.
not.
And-
I don't, dude, to be honest, like I love like my Japanese clients, and there are a handful of them I still deal with, but for the most part, when they come, they want your best stuff and they want a discount. And you're like, no, like I just stopped doing it. So I only take appointments from like my very best. Like, you know, I had to just kind of ignore some. And back in the day, I was like, anyone that would hit me up, I'd be like, come on by. I just don't do it anymore.
Yeah, and if you're pulling off, say, online stock, it can be a huge hassle, and then you can also run into like inventory problems because you're pulling out of online stock,
dude.
and they're moving shit, they're losing shit.
Multiple times a week, I'd forget to pull something that a Japanese client would buy, and then it would sell, and I'm like, oh, my shop was broken into. Like I got to have some kind of make up some story.
Yeah,
You had
totally.
to cancel the order, dude. And like, I just got so, like, I would say that was maybe the motivating factor. So I was like, I'm just not having these dudes over anymore. Because I got so sick of having to deal with that.
Yeah.
I'm guessing you've dealt with that
Oh,
also.
100%. And like, it's the same with the website. Like we would have people come shop our website. Now that I'm in my town, I don't get a lot of visitors here that want to like the Japanese grade wholesale. I get wholesale customers just want regular stuff. But so in our old warehouse, that used to happen all the time. Or we would get like celebrities or rappers would want to come shopping, and they would make the biggest messes. Everything would get lost. Then it's
They trash it. They trash your spot.
Yeah. So I'm not
If
really
they spend enough
into that
money,
anymore.
if they drop a bunch of dough, I'd let that slide. But often they would like make a huge mess. Not the clients you're talking about, just even the Japanese. They just make a huge mess, and then they buy like 4 things. And I'm like, so what? You just spent $400 or $500, and now my space is a complete wreck. No, thank you. You know what I mean? Like, it's just not worth it for me.
And you never know, even with celebrities, because half the time celebrities think that just because they're a celebrity, they get shit for free or like at a super discount. But you're like, well, you have all
You're
the
like,
money.
you're
Like,
rich, dude. You're rich. Like, what are you talking about?
pay up, son. It is the most annoying phenomena of celebrity stardom. They think everything's fucking free and should be handed to them.
Well, because they've gotten that. I mean, like, you know, they don't pay for drinks. They don't pay for food. They don't pay for travel, right? Because everyone wants to hang out with them. But you're like, this is my business, and you're cool, whoever you are, but I'm not giving you the shit for free. Absolutely not. I don't care who you are. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
totally.
it's just you can't do that.
So I want to hop back to eBay for a second here.
Yeah, no problem.
I love the eBay topic. So
Yeah.
how much is your store Welcome Home Vintage?
Yeah, that's me.
Okay, so you can find them at Welcome Home Vintage. How many items do you
Yep.
typically stock at any point?
At the most, I've had maybe 16 to 1,800 pieces up. Currently, I probably have around 800, but I would say on average, give or take about 1,000 pieces.
Okay. And you're saying like 20 garments a day is kind of your like sweet spot or happy place to be at for sales?
I mean, like a good month is 30 grand. A great month is 40 grand. A shitty month is 10 or 15. Like that.
Yeah.
And that sounds like a lot of money, but like none of that all I had to pay for all that. You know what I mean? But those are just like real numbers.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you telling the numbers. But of course, you know, a lot of people who jump into vintage don't understand business, right? And you obviously understand business after doing this for a long time. You pay rent, you have to buy the products, You have to pay a shitload of eBay fees because they're always kind of going up, or
they're always going up. Yep,
they're always going up. Heat, phone bills, whatever the fuck you got to deal with.
I have a part-time employee. I mean, there's like gas, electric, like the internet. I mean, you know what I mean? Now that we have this new space, we got the triple nets. You know about triple nets? When you get a lease on a commercial building, there's so many fees, dude. So many costs.
Yeah. Are you now you're not in Eugene, you're in Portland, correct?
I'm in Portland. I've been in Portland since 2000.
Yeah. Okay. That's what I thought. So yeah, people love to look at the numbers. And I think there's like this misconception about business too, where people love to look in from the outside and make judgments and assumptions on like, they must be balling, they're doing this and that. But really, it's so hard to judge like what people are up to.
I'm doing all right. I mean, like I got this cool credenza and shit.
You got
like,
a sick map on the wall.
This is pretty dope. But I mean, like, yeah, I'm not, dude. You don't know what I'm saying. I'm just joking. But yeah, I'm doing fine. But I am in no way, shape, or form bald. I'm just hustling, man. This business is tough.
Just like the rest of us. I want to know about the scene in Portland because you're opening a store, and I know there's a shit ton of stores there, right?
There's too many stores. But there's a lot of turdy ones. I mean, they're just like kids. They're just like, I found all this junk at the bins, and then they just like vomit it onto a rack with my pet peeve is like hangers they don't match. Hate that shit. And, and they just do like the bare minimum. They're just like, and then they call that a store. So like that's not what I'm doing. I'm not taking it to like, I wouldn't say next level, but I'm gonna be proud of the shop. Does that make sense?
Hell yeah.
Because like it's one thing just to hang shit up and like say I have a store. I'm gonna be proud of the store. So I'm hoping that I'm gonna take it to the next level.
That's awesome.
And my partner feels the same way,
So yeah, I think it's very key point, and being proud of your store is subjective to everyone who has a store. But for me, I am redoing my store right now because I want to get back to
retail location.
Yeah, like I'm revitalizing it, I guess you could say. Like, it's been there for like 15 years, so it's gone through a few different
so like whatever
iterations.
look you originally came out with, maybe you're thinking you need like a upgrade or like kind of a revamp or something.
Yeah, I mean, it like just needs a coat of paint. I want to do some new branding stuff. I want a new sign up front. Like, there's a lot of things that we just let slide for so long that you're like, this is so tired. Like, and I want to be able to walk in my store, like you're saying, and just be like, this is a great space. This space is inviting. It's like
this is dope.
It's a vibe,
I'm proud of this. Like, this is awesome. That's how I want to feel every day when I walk in. Not that it's the best store in the world, because that's a very tall order. But I want to walk in and go, I'm into this. Like this, I'm happy with what's going on in here. Does that make sense?
Hell yeah.
I don't want to walk in and be like, oh, I guess it's fine. Like that's like, I guess it's okay. Like that's that's terrible. That's terrible.
Yeah, and you got to think like, if you're proud of it, people will want to be there, and the store is there's, like you said, there's so many stores in Portland. There's so many stores in Vancouver. Basically, every city now is like saturated with new stores. You have to create a place where people want to be, that makes people happy, that they can find cool stuff, that they enjoy shopping in. Like, it's about connection with people. It's about the clothes, but like they can go to 10 vintage stores. So how's yours going to be different?
You have to make yours stand out. You have to make yours stand out. And that's kind of the goal, and I want it to be like dope stuff. Like I want high-end stuff, and I want mid-grade stuff, and then I want cheap stuff. I want everyone to be able to find something, There's going to be a $5 bin, and there's going to be like $400 t-shirts. There's going to be everything in between, I don't want like a museum, but I also don't want like a step up from a thrift shop like a lot of stores are. Like they go to the Goodwill bins and they just like put it on a hanger and they call it a shop.
Totally.
For me, it's embarrassing. Like I just can't do that.
Portland, obviously, you say has bins, and there's a lot of new kids jumping in the game. It's just like every city, but I feel like Portland.
There's four of them. There's four. There's four.
Wow.
Yeah, 4 bins.
Do you frequent the bins?
I don't go to them. I can't. I don't have the patience.
Did you ever? Was that ever part of your hustle?
Yeah, I mean, I did, but to be honest, it was never. my thing. Like I would rather go up and down the I-5 and just hit every retail store, every antique store, every junk store for days until I made my way all the way down to like Southern Oregon and then head back up and then I have a car full of stuff. I'd rather do that than sit at the bins from 9 to 5, just like waiting for like table to come out. I don't have the patience. I just don't. A lot of people, and I know good stuff comes out. I just never had the patience to do it. So it's never really been my focus or my main way of getting stuff.
It definitely takes patience, and I'd imagine it's trying with all the people there now. It'd probably be pretty tricky. But 4 is a lot for a city the size of Portland. I'm surprised. Maybe that's why it has so many stores.
Vancouver, which is just across the river. Not Vancouver, Canada, obviously.
Yeah,
Vancouver, Washington. Yeah, I know. I live here. So yeah, there's like 3. There's 2 in Portland proper, 1 out in Hillsborough, and then the 1 in Vancouver, and they're pretty good, dude. I mean, stuff comes up. I mean, I know a lot of people make a living off of what they get out of those stores. So there's a lot of stuff coming out. I personally would rather hit estate sales. I like to run ads in the paper, run ads on Craigslist. I like to get in houses. That's how I get stuff. I want to get someone's like, hey, I got all this stuff and like, you want to come over? Like, that's how I get stuff. I don't, the bins for me, I just don't like it.
Having a store is great for that also, because now you've opened yourself up to being like in the phone book on Google. And then sometimes we'll get those calls. Like we randomly will get a call from some woman who's like, I'm it's like a pre-estate sale thing. You want to come clean out all my clothes? I got a call. I'm going tomorrow to see a container from some guy that works in the movies that has like racks of like costume gear. I'm like, I'm coming.
That's what's up. That's what you want. There's no pressure. You get in there, you pick at your own pace. You don't have any competition. And that's how I like to buy stuff. And if you have money and like, you're able to have like, have a conversation, like you're not like a total like introvert weirdo. Like you can like, just talk to some. No, that's a lot of it. Your ability to just speak to people is a big part of it. A lot of people are just too weird. Like they can't, have a conversation. They can't negotiate. So, if you're like a normal guy and funny and, and easy to deal with, that's a huge advantage, big time.
But yeah, for sure. When there's always that talk about the yard sale. It's like when you're at a yard sale, ask them, do you have any more clothes? Because people don't often put out their clothes at the yard sale, right? But what you're saying about negotiating and being personable is so valid, because that person at the yard sale will not randomly go into their basement and pull out their t-shirts for some dickhead or some weirdo. Like you have to.
Or a weirdo, yeah.
Yeah,
if you're
you gotta
like a nice guy, or like you seem like an okay person. They're like, we didn't think about bringing those, but tell you what, why don't you just come in here? Like we got all the plot. Like you have to diffuse them. You have to be like, I'm not a threat. I'm a nice guy. You almost like want them. They almost want you to come in. Like that's the key. They want you to come in. Yeah. A lot of people just don't have that.
No, it's true. That's called reading the room, and I think it's an amazing skill to have, because that means you can be in any situation and understand what vibe you need to be in to make the thing work. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Because like you could make or break it on like how do you handle the situation. And some people are just weird, or they're uptight. Like they're not built. They're not equipped, And so I'm okay at it. I'm decent at it. My partner's very good at it. When he's like, basically what we do is we go into a house, I look at all the clothes and I tell him, I'm like, here's what we got. It's worth this, blah, 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 blah. He then goes to work and he talks to the people and he works on them and he gets the price and like we make the deal. And so we work really good together. But like, I just tell him like what's up. He does everything else. It's awesome. I love it.
No way. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. Because like, he doesn't know clothes. He knows furniture. Like I'm the clothes guy. So I'm like, this stuff is okay, but it's not great. Or I'm like, this is insane, dude. Like this is a crazy pile. I just tell him straight up, like, this is what this is. And then I just let him do his thing. And it just seems to work, man. It just seems to work out.
So I was in Mexico recently on vacation, and we met up with these guys, and they took us to a market. And this was like a U.S. clothing market fair thing, like every Saturday. Super nice dudes, and they were taking us around, and they were like, listen, like when you want to buy something, like give it to me and I'll negotiate. Because they're like, they're gonna tax me
they're gonna hose you.
I'm a gringo. And I tried it a few times, but the problem was they already saw me. They like saw me already. So like the negotiation was fucked right away because then they're grabbing the thing, trying to get the deal. But yet they're like, no, I know it's for the whitey over there. Like he's getting hosed. So didn't work in my case.
And so like, did they actually know like market value or like what was like, I mean,
it's also fucking cheap anyway. Like they're negotiating down on like a $5 tee to $4 or $3. It wasn't like a big deal. Okay. It wasn't a big deal. But
they didn't like really know. They just knew like, oh, he has money. He's a gringo from America or whatever.
Yeah.
He can pay the $5. Fuck the $3.
Yeah. The guys I was with, they're vintage heads, and they knew what's up. They picked the market all the time, and they had a shitload of stuff at their houses, like collection wise.
Is this like rag stuff that they're getting down there? Like, I mean, because it all kind of has to come from Canada or America at some point, right?
Yeah, they buy the bales. They buy rags, man. They buy the bales from the rag houses, and they crack them down there, and then they just throw them on tables, and they have it like for sale for whatever their price is, like.
Right. And they get decent stuff.
Well, I think the guys were saying that they all want to buy the grade A, so they all want to buy like only the really clean product in Mexico, just like anywhere where they're selling.
But like the bales are often like not the great. It's like often the stuff the thrift stores don't want to deal with, right? Is that like typically how it works?
Well, these guys are buying bales that are after the rag house. They're not buying the bales from the thrift store. So those are like mixed bales. The guys in Mexico would be buying like a bale of T-shirts, but the problem is,
it's pre-sorted.
It's pre-sorted.
Yeah. Okay.
But the bale of T-shirts that they're buying is grade A, which is actually bad for vintage because like any off-color white shirt or any like little teeny flaw would get taken out. So so much of good vintage has like flaws. So it's mostly like new
discolor. So it's just new stuff, which like that's like walking into any thrift store. You're just like, you can go to any Goodwill here, and there's hundreds of brand new T-shirts on the rack. You don't want any of them.
Exactly. It's all garbage.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. So I guess back to the sourcing thing, it sounds like you have a good system going on, but are you getting enough currently with your methods? Like, are you stocked up? Do you have enough to keep yourself going pretty?
So like any person in the business, and me and Heath constantly fight over this, I'm always thinking that I'm going to run out of stuff. If we stop buying today and just focused on listing what we have, because we have clothing and other stuff. It's not just clothing. I would say we have enough stuff to list for 3 years. However, I will literally be online tomorrow morning looking at estate sales, looking on Craigslist. It's like, it's an addiction, man. It's an obsession because you're always thinking that huge hit's coming. But I don't need stuff. I mean, we don't need stuff. Like, seriously, don't need it. But like, I just bought like a whole pile from a guy like yesterday, and he's like, "What are we doing, dude?" I need to be like shut. I need to be like shut down. Like, just go lay down. Go lay down, dude. Like,
that's crazy to think you have 3 years of product.
So but it's not just clothing. So he was buying stuff 20 years ago. His dad was in the antique business. So he's got ephemera. He's got like all this stuff, like just boxes and boxes, like photos and like coins and books and like just all this stuff that I don't really know about, but I know is money. Just boxes of it, dude. Just they go on for days and days and days. So like, if I just literally just like turn my phone off and stopped answering all my pickers' calls and stopped looking, we could probably list for solid a couple years without having to go buy.
Wow,
so that's a good problem to have.
Yeah, totally.
But I guarantee I'll be buying something in like a day or two. So
that's the fun part. That's the best part.
You know what I'm talking about? Like, you can't stop, dude. You just can't. You can't stop. None of us can.
If the deal shows up, you got to take it.
So, but I can tell you one thing that you can do when you know you're like fat with merch, you only take the good deal. When you're like scraping by, you're going to take questionable deals. But when you have a ton of stuff on backstock, you're like, not right, not right. And then you just take the one where it's either a home run or you're getting a dirt cheap or you know you can flip it immediately. You know what I mean? You're not taking the questionable ones. You just pass on those.
Yeah, for sure. It's how long is it gonna take you to sell it? Like, is it an easy, super quick sell? Like, there's all these factors you got to think about when buying deals. Like, because just buying something cheap is not always good, because cheap,
No, you can have it
doesn't
forever.
sell fast. Yeah, you can fucking have it forever. And keeping something for any amount of time costs money, no matter
Yep.
what or where
Yep.
it is, unless you
You got to
have
move
like.
it. You got to put it on a hanger. An employee has to move it. There's all types of things that happen.
I was thinking about this actual exact thing today, because I bought like 2 or 3 pallets of corduroy hats, right? Blank hats. They were so cheap though, man. They were like
snapback kind of hats, or
they
what?
were like, yeah, they were essentially like corduroy blank snapbacks. So
Okay.
long ago that at the time, like, nobody gave a shit about corduroy. And they
Those
were
are kind of cool. I like those.
Yeah.
Trendy. I mean,
they're right now, currently, they're like super hot, and I sold the shit out of
Yeah.
them recently. But I had them for so long, and I bought them for so cheap. They
Oh.
were like 20 cents, or I think they actually were like less than 10 cents a hat, because it was like this
Whoa.
closeout deal.
That's like free. That's free.
I know. So I bought them. We sold a few, but then it ended up being such a slow sell that we like just put them in a storage container for like literally maybe 10 years, and they sat there, right?
Which was
And I'm
probably
like,
smart.
You know, and when I brought them out not long ago, I got great money for them. But I was like thinking in my head, I wonder how much I invested in that fucking storage locker into these hats. And I wonder, even in reality, did I make money, because they were sitting in a $500 storage locker, $500 a month container.
And there was just them. There was other stuff.
No, there's other shit in there, but I
So
mean,
it's like whatever percentage of space they took up, you could literally come up with like a number, like
yeah,
$134 a month. These hats took up for this many months, and that, you know what I mean. So I know exactly where you're coming with this. You might
Yeah,
not have
and
made
it-
money.
I
You
might not
have
have made
lost
much money.
You might have lost money on this
Funny.
deal, and a lot of
But
people
yet-
don't see it that way. You know, but
No,
you have
for
to look
sure.
at things that way.
And then it also begs the thing, like, yes, it could be valuable to put certain things away to wait for the trend to hit. But again, it really depends on how much space that thing is taking up and what that space is costing you. Because like
And
in my case,
if you own a space that you're like I have a house with a giant like basement, I'll just stick it in the basement and forget about it. But if you're paying a locker fee, and those fees have gone up, I'm assuming Canada's no different. The storage
sure.
fees here are insane. They're nuts. Like, it doesn't even really make sense a lot of times. Like, they're just too expensive.
that's the business we want to be in, is owning the storage unit places, because they're the ones
Dude.
making all the damn money.
They don't do one storage locker we're in. It's actually an old John Deere tractor factory, and like they don't do shit. Like, there's like one guy that works the door that like can do nothing. There's been a sign on the bathroom that says out of order for like 2 months, and like it's too fucking anything, dude. Luckily, like the power works, the lights work, the elevator works, but no, they don't do anything. They're just cashing your fucking check. That's the
Yeah.
business.
That's the
We're
business.
doing it wrong. We've all been doing it wrong this whole time.
Sorry to interrupt the regular programming of this podcast, but I have a special announcement. I'm here to tell you about the Fort Collins, Colorado Vintage Market. Okay, coming up March 18th. It is taking place at the Emporium Sports Bar. Over 20 vintage vendors. This is buy, sell, trade, bringing you all kinds of great product. Yeah, vintage clothing, vintage accessories, good vibes, craft beer. Again, this is Fort Collins, Colorado Vintage Market, March 18th, 12 to 5 at the Emporium Sports Bar. If you're in the area or you're close by, definitely go check it out.
So let's talk about some specific scores, or like maybe digs or items you've had in the past,
Okay.
like memorable sales or memorable items you've had over the years, because you've obviously had lots of them.
Well, there's one of the biggest ones, which I actually didn't make a lot of money on. I don't know if you ever saw the photos I posted. I got like 1,500 pairs of dead stock Converse, like all 80s, 90s, from like a shop down in Eugene.
Wow.
It filled up a whole cargo van from like floor to ceiling all the way back. So that was huge, but I overpaid, and like, the money wasn't, but like the rush and like the feeling, it was worth it. You know what I mean? It was worth it. I mean, it was just
Yeah.
I was hauling up like, piles of shoes all in the box like that. And that was pretty good.
How did that go down? Did you randomly walk in the store?
It was,
Did you
dude,
tip?
so it was a skate shop in Eugene that I used to buy my skateboards at. And like, I knew this guy. His name was Lazar. It's called Lazar's Bazaar. And I knew he had stuff because he had never, he never got rid of anything. So I knew he had stuff, but I hadn't lived in Eugene in forever. And then a picker up in Portland went there and like bought some stuff and then kind of like told me about it. But like, he didn't really have the money. So like, I kind of like, it was like, hey man, if you just tell me what this pick is, I'll go in and like, I'll chip you out. So he told me what it was. And I was like, oh shit, that's Lazar. So I went down there and then, it took about 4 or 5 days and we worked it out. And like, it was all in this basement, and me and Heath had to come up, and it was like, you can only carry about 20 pairs at a time. It took all day to get all those pairs up there. But
That's awesome.
It was one of those deals where like, if I was to hold out and sell them all individually online, I would have, made out, but it would take a couple of years. But I didn't just wholesale them to one guy or a couple of guys. And, I made some money. I made all right money, but it was just too much to deal with because there were just so many repeat pairs. You know what I mean? Like 40 pairs of the same size, the same color. And that takes forever. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So this guy had no skateboards, no leftover skate clothes or shoes.
He'd been run through before by Japanese, so he had stuff, but the skateboards were all gone. The skate tees were all gone. And then the Converts have been gone through too, because size 9 to size 10 or 11 were gone. So I got I got like 9 and earlier, you know what I mean? So he had been run through. And I knew him well enough that like once he remembered me, because I used to buy all my skateboards there back when I was a kid. I kind of ran through the pieces. I was like, all right, so you sure there's no Airwalks like chilling or Vans, and and then they had all been bought, you know what I mean? But he still had cool shit. One of the things is he was sitting on a bunch of like cool old sneakers that like British Knights. Remember British Knights, the blood killers?
Fuck yeah.
Oh yeah. And then, but they were all like, all the foam was toast. You know what I mean? There was a lot of stuff that had been down there so long that they like were just disintegrated. You know what I mean?
made the mistake
Luckily,
over the years of buying shoes where the foam was toast, and you're just like,
or he
now,
just left,
again,
or he bought them.
sits in boxes,
Or
does
you made
nothing.
No. So if you buy those shoes where the foam is toast, unless it's like an Air Jordan that people are willing to, swap the soles or whatever they do, the other brands, they're just worthless. I mean, they're nothing, So I passed on all that stuff. But yeah, T-shirts were gone. He had some posters, but it would have been a gold mine if I got in there 10 years earlier. Which I don't know why I didn't think of it, but anyways, that was.
Well, I mean,
there's
plenty of places like that for us too. It's like we took leftovers on a lot of places, but I mean, leftovers after a period can be good because you're like the things they left started to hit later, too.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. So another hit, and now that I just remembered, so this was probably late 90s. There was a Western wear work store in Cottage Grove. And of course, the Japanese already run through it. So like, no red lines, no big E's, no double X, all that shit's gone. What was left, I must have bought 500 pairs of cords, 517, 646s, 684s, all new with tags.
Those are great.
$6 a piece. Now, this was back before the internet, so I was maybe wholesaling them for 15 or 20. That was good money at the time. But that was like, $1.50 now. So, and these were good colors, greens, purples, burgundies. I mean, and it was just like, the guy was so happy to get rid of them because for him, they were junk. They were like, oh, that shit's corny. No one buys that stuff anymore. People want like Wranglers or whatever they were selling. So that was a big one.
The cords, we don't even get anymore, man. It's so crazy. We used to bring
Remember
like
how, dude, they
20,
were
30
so
pairs every month to the
common.
bowl. Yeah, they were very common.
So common.
And they sold. It was like a just a middle grade like commodity.
15 to 20 a pop or something.
Yeah.
25. Yeah.
And now like I see like a pair, like a few pairs a year maybe. Like it's crazy.
Yeah, no, they used to be. I mean, I remember the early days of picking, just hitting the racks. I'd find a few pair a day. And then by the time my Japanese guy would show up, which is like every 2 months, I'd have 50, 60, 75 pair. That was totally normal. Now, if I find a pair, I'm like, oh, you know what I mean? It's like you're like surprised. You just don't see them.
So what about some single items, like any crazy, denim scores over the years, workwear scores?
One of my best scoops, there's been some good ones. One of my better ones, it's probably 10, 12 years ago. The guy in Montana, I was running ads on Craigslist, and this guy got into abandoned buildings. And this was an old guy. He wasn't like one of these young bucks. Like, he wasn't calling them bandos. He was just like, he was just like, basically what this guy did was he was like in the reclaimed lumber business. So he'd like find these buildings on property and say, hey, I'll tear down that building for free, but I get to keep all the lumber because he'd sell the lumber. And then he realized, he's like, I'll also whatever's inside of them. So he hit me up and he's like, hey, I've got like a bunch of Levi's. And like, so we met in Spokane. He was out in somewhere in Montana. I'm in Portland. And he had bucklebacks, fucking Bluebell Wranglers, center patch Lees, Wranglers. I mean, it was nuts, dude. I mean, it was like a carload. I mean, it was like a $20,000 load that I think I probably gave him like, $4,000, $5,000 for. So that was, and nothing was mint, obviously. This was all farm depression era stuff. So everything was, hammered, but that was a big one. You know what I mean? And then we kept doing deals, and then eventually, I don't know what happened to him. In fact, I actually think he passed away, but he had drug problems and he went to jail. And but for a while there, dude, I mean, every time he called me, it was like, because he would just get into these old places. You know what I mean? And I was the guy. So he'd send me boxes. I'd open the boxes, and the first thing I'd see would be a buckle back, and it's a good box. It's a good box, dude.
That's so rad, man.
Yeah, so I miss that guy. I miss that guy. God rest his soul. He's passed now, but for a while there, we were doing some good deals together.
Yeah, that lumber business is good too. I've done some like when I've done some renovations, I've searched out barns and stuff, and I've gone to a few places where they were just like, you could go back and like take any of the wood off the barn. So I would do that.
That old wood is better quality than a lot of the new wood. It's like smaller grain, or it's just better. You know what I mean? Or it has the right look or whatever. So a lot of that stuff is very desirable.
For sure.
I don't mess with it, but I know it. People are after it.
Yeah, but it also has the look. It has the worn look if you're looking for like accent pieces. And, I think because it's old growth wood, it's the older, like the trees were bigger and better. Now everything we buy is like second, third farmed wood,
Right. Like it's harder. Like the rings are bigger. I don't know. It's more desirable across the board from what I can tell. Yeah. Like everything old, right? Everything older is better.
There you go. That's why we do it.
Computers are the only thing that's not better. And phones. Those two suck.
I guess we wouldn't be talking without a computer right now, but in so many ways we could do without computers.
Setup, dude. So it'd be terrible, right?
Yeah, I'd be like, I'm gonna call you on the landline, and then I'm gonna tape record it on my tape recorder here. See how that goes.
And then it's not gonna work, and then I'm gonna have to call you back, and then we're gonna have to redo it. There's like a real thing in the background or something. Like it's just not gonna work.
Oh man, good old days. The good old days.
Yeah, remember the flip phones? I remember the flip. I had my first cell phone was the Motorola Flip, dude.
Hell yeah, I have a Motorola Flip. I feel like it might be in one of my desk drawers.
It's like $20 a minute, dude. kids don't even know. Like you made a phone call, you're like, I don't know. I go, it's like $20 a call, dude.
My dad had like this car phone thing that was like this big box that like sat in the middle of the console, and like I don't even really think it worked well, or they never used it. It was just like this.
Did he even need it? Was he like that balling? Like he needed to be?
No, I don't even know why. Like he wasn't. It was like I don't think it was used very much, but it was just some stupid car phone.
He just
thing.
had it though. I'm sure as a kid you're like, yeah, what's up, dude?
I'm like, yeah, dude, sweet one. And then my dad always had used, well, not used, but I mean, it's a car, it's used, but like older Benzes. Like his thing was like driving these older like.
The diesels, like the Reagan era ones.
They were diesels.
Those are bulletproof. Those things never die, dude. They never die.
Yeah, my dad
had
actually
500,000 miles to an engine on those diesels, dude. It's crazy.
Yeah, I run a VW diesel, one of the controversy cars, but I fucking love my diesel.
Oh,
and
that was the one where they're like, yeah, we're getting all this gas mile or whatever. They're like, oh, we're just kidding. We're just kidding.
We're just kidding. It's a heavily polluting car. It's actually terrible for the environment.
We're just kidding. We're just kidding.
But then they're like, you can hand your car back into us and get the refund. And I'm like, fuck no, I'm keeping this thing. This thing's epic, dude.
My buddy traded his in and got like a smoking deal on like a newer one. Like the traded, like they were just so embarrassed. They're like, the trade-in was like stupid. Like he got like a smoking deal.
Yeah, but I was commuting at the time, and I'm like, there's no car you're going to give me that's better on gas than this thing. And they still offered like probably like a $5,000 or $6,000 rebate, and I got to keep the car. So I was like, okay,
no shit.
I'll take that.
It gets good gas mileage.
Yeah, it's great.
So this
actually.
day,
I think the thing wasn't that it didn't get good gas mileage. The thing was that they said the emissions were way lower than it was. So they faked the emissions.
Yeah, they fibbed. They fibbed.
The little fibbing.
Interesting. Yeah, little fib.
Little fibbers. So you're wearing an EPMD shirt, obviously, and I've sold you. I know I've sold you. I think the Fat Boy shirt.
I've got a handful of decent ones from you over the years.
Maybe like a Run DMC or two.
Yeah. I mean, if you had it, I'd buy it unless it was out of my price range. But usually, I just pay it if I love it.
So yeah, give us a little insight into like what's your sort of passion as far as vintage and what you collect.
I would say even since the early days, it's always been t-shirts, and I think that probably came from like the Nike t-shirts, because that was like kind of what got me started. So in those days, like, and you could find t-shirts like this, Public Enemy, all these kind of things, either at a vintage shop, on the rack at the Goodwills, or what a lot of my early ones came from eBay. You get like a dope t-shirt for like $15 because no one cared, because all they were interested in at that time were rock t-shirts. You know what I mean? Like no one was interested in rap hip hop t-shirts in the early 2000s, from what I can tell. Right?
No, it's true.
So,
it's true.
Yeah, and so that's what I was buying for years and years and years. And along with that, I was just buying, like, I love Champion, the rayon cotton blend, with the water print. Those are my favorites. So I was always collecting those. And then eventually it hit a point, maybe like 15 years ago, where like all the hip hop t-shirts just went like, you know what I mean? Like, and they were still in the realm. I was like, all right, I'll pay $250, I'll pay $350. But once they hit like a G, 2 Gs, 3 Gs, I was like, I'm out. I had to tap. Like, I don't need them that bad. You know what I mean? That was kind of a sad day, because I still wanted to buy them, but like I normally just couldn't afford them, or I couldn't. It just seemed silly to spend that much money on a t-shirt.
So did you collect? I still feel like a lot of the 80s ones never gained value like the 90s
no,
ones.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I always liked the 80 ones better. That was always my thing. Always like the 80s. Because that's my era. That was like middle school, early high school for me. And then by the time I was older and those 90s ones were coming out, I was kind of into like techno and like rave music and different stuff. And I just like didn't care. You know what I mean? So like for me, it's like that mid to late 80s, early 90s is the era that I'm interested in. And those
give
are
us-
the ones that don't go crazy. You know what I mean?
No, they don't. I mean, there's still value there, but they're definitely not like $3,000 Tupacs or
No,
whatever the
no.
fuck's going on, or
And I don't
Nas
even
or
want.
something.
I mean, I'd take one, but like that clearly like doesn't do it for me.
So what are some like notable shirts in your stash that you're like really hyped on?
Well, it was between this. I mean, here's the thing. I thought about this long and hard for the last 2 days. I was like, I don't want to seem too like obvious. Like I couldn't wear my most crazy shirt, right? That's like you're just trying too hard. But I also don't want to wear something dumb, right? So I picked mid-grade. So this is mid-grade shit. So it's between this and my Fat Boys t-shirt. And then I also had a Rocky Mountain Featherbed t-shirt, which I think was like a you know Rocky Mountain Featherbed, right? They were the
leather.
Yeah, but I have a t-shirt, which I think is maybe an employee t-shirt. So I almost wore that one, but it's a little tight.
That's pretty cool. I've never seen that. And it just has like the same tag graphic.
It
on
has
the
the
shirt.
same font, and I've shown it to a ton of outdoor dorks, and like, because I almost thought it was fake. I was like, "You think this is real?" And everyone I've shown, they're like, "This looks legit to me." So
It's
I
like
assume it's an
100% cotton. 100% cotton.
Yeah,
like
it's
70s.
It's a spruce slate. So it's
Oh,
like one
sick.
of those red, like kind of rayon cotton blends, ringers, and it just says black across the front, Rocky Mountain Featherbed, you know, blah, 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 Wyoming. And I've never seen one since. I got an inspiration, actually.
No
Like,
way.
it was just on a rack. I just don't think anyone, like, made the connection.
I feel like
You
that
know?
would be worth a mint.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, like, I don't remember what I paid for it. I didn't pay a lot. It might have been $50, but I would have paid a lot more than that. Whoever had it, I just maybe didn't know, like, what that brand was or something. So it was between this one, Fat Boys, and that other one. But I've met
So
a
for
lot of
people
way
listening
crazier
to
ones.
this that don't know what that is, Rocky Mountain Featherbed is like, it's from Wyoming, right? Is it Wyoming?
Yeah, they do like that. So they do like, they always have the leather yoke, and then they have
Yeah.
like the 60-40 body. So it's either a vest, and they do a mountain parka as well.
Yeah.
And so, and the vest, they also do an all leather vest. And then like, I've actually had some with like, I had an all leather vest, two-tone with like a mink fur collar. I don't know if you've ever seen those.
Yeah, I've had those. Those are called the Christie vest. They called it. It had
Yeah,
a name.
yeah.
And those
Yeah,
are like
those
the
are-
most valuable for sure.
Yeah,
All leather.
I got real dough for one of those. I mean, and I haven't seen one since. I've had one. That was the only time. So
We've had the
highly-
mountain parkas, or they're not the hooded ones though. There's like a collared one in the
Yeah.
camo
But
with the leather.
They had the zip that was a camo.
Yeah, there's camo.
It's a
We had that
camo
years
nothing.
and years ago.
Oh my god, a camo! Oh, dude, I love anything camo, dude. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
that was probably one of the
photos
best.
of that. Do you have any photos?
Probably if I could look back in the archive somewhere, but
because dude, that sounds like grail level, like for my type of collectability. It's like Rocky Mountain camo with the leather yoke, like that's huge, dude. I had no idea.
Yeah, totally.
No idea.
So I also heard something about this is from
Uh-oh,
Good
here
by
we go.
Heart. So you
Okay.
guys, he said you went to Inspiration with him the first one, and
I did.
and
Yeah, and the airplane hanger. That was fucking amazing. That was great.
yeah, I was there. I don't know if we met
no
at
shit.
that point.
I met
yeah,
you. I remember, and your dad was there, right? Or maybe you and your brother were telling me about your dad because you were like, yeah, our dad was in the rag game, and I don't know if he was there, but I remember meeting you guys that first show.
yeah, that was a cool one, and the airport hangar in Santa Monica, super cool location. And it was like at that point, it was like this is the first of this show. It was kind of the first for me, it was the first high-end vintage show I've been
like
to,
workwear,
really.
T-shirt, like
Yeah,
like a curated version of like the Rose Bowl, but all the other shows were like all the like nerd I wear a suit all the time, or you know what I mean. It was the shows were always like very costumey, in my opinion. So this one was,
because there's there's a show out in Palm
Vegas.
Springs that's like the Rockabilly show or the Vegas Rockabilly
Yeah.
show, but they're very
Yeah.
like niche. They're very niched out. Yeah,
it's very
Yeah.
niche, and it's never really my thing. Like that whole aesthetic, I like it, but it was never my jam.
and he said that you guys were like going around filming people and interviewing everybody or something.
So I had this grand idea for many years before that show that I wanted to do a documentary on the vintage business, and I didn't have clue what I was doing. So I go down, I had a GoPro, and then I actually had a buddy in Portland who had a friend down there that was like a professional videographer that owed him a favor. So he followed me around the whole time. So I was interviewing all these people and I got all this dope footage. And then I had all that footage on a hard drive, on an old PC that I just lost, or it got in a move and I just never found the footage again. Yeah, I know, right? But here's the thing. I never would have made the movie anyways. It's basically what I learned was making a documentary movie is the hardest thing anyone could possibly do. And I didn't have the time, the motivation, or the money to do it. It's so much work.
Yeah.
So much work.
I would have loved to see some of that footage, though. Who did you interview? Do you remember? Or just a couple notables?
No, I interviewed Larry. I interviewed all the usual suspects, and then some random people I don't even remember. I was just walking around from booth to booth going, "Hey man, can I interview you?" And some people were like, "Absolutely not," and other people were like, "All about it." So there's probably some gold on there, but
totally.
Sadly, it's gone, unfortunately.
Was Larry on your customer list back then, or even before then? Yeah.
Larry was a heavy hitter back in the day. If you had a rare denim piece, a rare something, as the years went on, nothing against Larry. I like Larry, but I met and got to know the Japanese clients that he'd sell to. So then it was just well, if you're going to sell the Burbage or 100 buyers or all these guys, I have their number. I don't need to sell, you know what I mean? That kind of thing. So as the years went on, he became less and less necessary, I guess. But I have nothing bad to say about Larry. He was always straight with me.
Yeah, totally. Larry's straight.
And the early days before I had those other connections, he would pay more than most. So he stepped up on a lot of stuff over the years.
And I feel like Larry sometimes would garner more than potentially you or I could from somebody, just because it's Larry. If it's a Larry piece, all of a sudden it's
he had a cachet. He had a Larry cachet. He did. He absolutely did. And I would never argue that. I don't know that he still does, but back in the day, he 100% did.
Was there other Portland guys on your level, in those back in the early 2000s?
I don't know. I don't know if you know John Persons. I don't know if you ever met John. He was a big guy. He was doing huge numbers. And then my buddy Patrick Wheeler. I don't know if you know Patrick. He does the Bull. He's a buddy of mine. There's a lot of guys that kind of just kept up to their own. They don't really have an online presence, but no, there was plenty of guys. And then some of them would come, some of them would go. But as far as people that are still doing it, that were doing it then, Patrick's probably the only guy. John's older. He's retired. He bought 30 houses. I mean, he's loaded now. But Patrick's still going. Patrick's probably one of the biggest dealers in Portland. I mean, he does big numbers.
And it's all
he keeps a low profile.
It's all wholesale to clients, no retail.
He does Japanese guys. He also has a lot of the the buy and sell, the antique booth clothing places, the House of Vintage. He has a huge presence.
That's a big thing in Portland. There's a lot of those they're called not markets, but there's a name for those things
mall,
where there's
the
vintage mall or something.
Dude, there's 10 of them, and then they keep opening new ones, and you're like, how could there possibly be more vendors? And then that one's full, and then they're it's insanity. There's so many of them.
Have you ever done those? Put your stuff in?
No, I'm more like the guy that goes through looking for mistakes, hoping to you know what I mean? I don't know. I've never needed to do it because you don't make any money unless you do it on a big scale. And I know that because Patrick, did it for years on a small scale, didn't really do well. And finally he had 15 spaces and now he's crushing it, So it's a volume gig.
Yeah, I mean? Totally.
If they take, not only do they take rent, they take 15%, plus you have to go in every day and sort it. It's a lot of work.
You gotta monitor it, and then Yeah, I've like
People
done
steal shit all the time. I mean,
yeah,
there's
that's
whole bunch.
that's a big thing too, man. And that's partly why I'm like, I told you I'm doing like a revamp of my store because we have insane theft, man. And like, I feel like if you attract a higher clientele level, you'll have less theft. And if you're like more thrift store level, then you're going to get a lot of theft because you just attract like a mishmash of people, right?
Sure.
Um,
And you can't watch everyone. You can't have like a thing on every. Like you can't just like hover over someone. You're just going to get shit stolen. It's just going to happen.
you got to
know?
expect it, and you can't. Some people are so fucking butthurt about it, and they won't accept it, and they waste so much energy on like making sure it won't happen, instead of like accepting that a certain percentage will happen and just move on
Yeah.
and like go work
Yeah.
on other parts of your business. You know?
Don't put any. But Patrick always says anything over $50 hangs up, or like anything over 100. He's like, there's nothing on the rack like above a certain price because he's like anything on that rack can be stolen. So if I have anything like 75, 80, 100 and up, they have to bring it down. You know what I mean? And that makes a lot of sense. Because like
Yeah,
people just
that's a good
roll in-
point.
People just roll in, like, you know, if you need a fix, like you're like a drug addict or whatever your deal is, you can go steal a couple things, walk down the street, sell it. You got $40 in your pocket. Boom. That's your deal. And that probably happens every single day, you know?
Yeah,
So-
100%.
And you're not going to get rid of it, but you can minimize it.
Yeah, you can minimize it, and I think there's many ways to do that, but don't let it fucking ruin your vibe or kill your soul because so many
how
people.
many times have you seen people on Instagram? There's like, this part, like, they just spend like their whole life like dedicated to this one person.
Yeah,
Like,
dude.
bro, just chill, man. Like that person sucked. They stole. That was really terrible. But like, how much energy have you spent on posting and reposting and just, the rage, like I'm so mad. Like, I feel like it's not worth it.
No,
They
it's not
never
worth
get that
it.
thing back. That never happens. They never get that thing back.
I got a funny story actually. One time we had something stolen at the Rose Bowl. Speaking of getting things back, and we posted about it. I think we posted about it, or we might have sent it to friends. But anyway, we spread it around somehow, and then we
To
got
other
it
people at the
in
bowl.
the business at the bowl and in LA. And then this was when round 2 was like at its maybe height of like popularity. Somebody brought it into round 2 to sell, and Sean
shit.
fucking took it from the guy for us. He's like, this is my friends.
Whoa.
I'm like, I know you
No
stole this.
shit.
And he got it
Good
back
for
for
him.
us.
Good for him. Because it's a small group of people, and like, especially if it's a very specific piece, you're like, dude, like, obviously there's not multiple of these around. So if you see this blue, blah 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 blah.
Yeah, well,
And then
this piece was the Rasta tank, the Polo Rasta tank. It's like it's like the block. It's color blocked with like the Rasta colors, tank top,
Yeah.
Polo Nike.
Yeah.
Very like, it's like there's not a lot of these out there. It's very distinct.
You're not going to
piece.
see multiple of those in a day. Sure.
No. So he fucking got it back for us. We were like super grateful, and it was like we were like, holy shit, like it worked. It actually happened.
Right.
We weren't even expecting to. And again, we wouldn't even have cared, but that's like at the time, I think we were trying to get $800 for that piece, right?
That's real money. It wasn't
Yeah.
$80. That's $800. You know what I mean? That's actual money. Now,
Yeah.
I don't get it. Like those kids or whoever those people that are stealing, like, I don't know what their like long-term goal is, but you're going to get outed with every shop has cameras. You know what I mean? Like you're just going to be put on blast if you pull that shit.
And it's karma is a real fucking thing, in my opinion, and
Sure,
in my
I agree
belief
with that.
system. And I believe like you got to put out good vibes to get good vibes, and that shit's gonna come back to you. And I also, that's kind of how I justify not worrying about it, because I'm like, I know these people are hurt up. If they're like addicts or low on cash, they need the money. Like they really needed to steal this thing. I just feel bad for you, and it's gonna come back to you in some other way anyway. So I just don't worry about it. But I think like, we've all stolen something. When I was a kid, like, sure, I stole some candy bars.
Oh, sure.
Or,
Yeah, I used to sell candy and like all that. Yeah, sure. We've all done it.
we've all done it. But then eventually you realize, like,
It's
now when you're in your own business, you're like, yeah, you don't want to steal from somebody because you're like, I don't want them to steal from me, and I get how that feels now.
Yep.
So-
Absolutely. 100%. Like I'd never steal anything now unless I was like, desperate to like, survive. I mean, like just absolutely have no reason to do that. So
Yeah, no. So inspiration is coming back. How do you feel about this?
Well, let's see if Ren does any kind of promotion. Have you seen the flyer? It
Yes,
looks
I've
like
seen the flyer.
dude. His flyers are absolutely terrible. I talk to Brian about this all the time. It looks like some kind of fetish, like fantasy camp, dude. It's like, no, dude, look, dude, I wish you had him. I wish you had it. I wish I had him to show it. It's so weird.
I'm gonna get Matt, my editor. You got to put the flyer on the screen for this talk, man. Oh my god,
Dude, it's the most bizarre thing. I'm just like, is this like a fetish show or like a vintage show? And then remember the one where you had like the girl at like the stadium? Dude, his promotion is the most bizarre thing. It makes no sense.
But
So,
everybody
now, I
kind of
haven't-
vibes on it, and everybody kind of laughs at it. But it goes like, "Oh, we're in," you know, and the broken English and just the funny his funny take on the culture that we have
I
here.
like Ren. He's a great guy, and I'm
Great guy.
not like mad at it.
No,
I just
of
feel like
course.
he does a bad job at promoting the show, and like people that set up like suffer in a way because there should be way more people of those shows.
Yeah,
Like the last couple,
the last couple were very bad attendance.
they're
and I
bad, right?
think people
they're bad.
and the location was bad. This is better. It's in Pasadena, eh? So it's in like the
so it's a different
Pasadena.
location because this is
Yeah.
at the Staples Center. That was way too huge. Right? It was insane.
It's in like
Okay,
this. Yeah, the last one was Staples Center with the very like soulless, empty space. in my
Soulless,
opinion,
nothing.
Yeah.
Like nothing. Yeah.
So, but the Pasadena one I know is a much more intimate facility. It's like right downtown Pasadena by like the, you would know it because you've been down there a bunch, right?
Sure.
It's like
Not a
right,
bunch. I've been
right,
down enough.
right across from like that walking mall that's right on Colorado. Great location.
Yeah. Okay.
And also like I'm talking about it on this show. So hopefully fucking I'm helping promote it. And I did reach out to Rin for that exact thing you're saying. I was like, dude, the game has
Promote it.
changed. The last show you did was 5 years ago. The game has changed. Now it's like you got to get to the younger generation because they're the new like denim buyers, really, when you break
his
this
Instagram
down.
should be blowing up. His TikTok should be blowing up. No, I'm not even concerned about the paper shit. Like his social media should be like on fire, and I just don't think it is. You know, but maybe he's like, I'll make my money either way, I guess.
And it's actually not cheap. Like compared to any other shows, it's quite expensive. So
What was it, like $1,500 a booth? Something like that?
yeah, I think a 10 by 10 is like 1,000 or 1,200.
Yeah,
something
because
like
I think
that.
Brian was like on the fence. Brian can afford it. He's like, I just don't even, he's like, I'd rather just buy. He's like, I'd rather just pay the early entry and run around and buy crap than like set up, you know? But
Yeah.
you know, almost $2,000 for a space. It's a lot of money.
Remember the footage of Brian's booth when he? Oh no, Brian was the one jumping in the booth. There's
Air
footage.
Snappy? Air Snappy, yeah. See, everyone was coming from the front and he went from the side and he did like a straight up like Air Jordan dude jump for a jacket. It was incredible. It was absolutely
Do
incredible.
you remember whose booth that was?
I do. It's those guys. It's those Found Indie guys. The guys from Indiana.
Oh yeah,
The
okay.
guy that, yeah, it was their booth.
So
Yeah.
I got to paint this picture for the listeners here. So they close their booth off. They get everything set up.
So
you
it's
can
all
see
it's all
everything.
roped off. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
all
it's
roped off.
roped off. You can see all the heat up on the wall, all the best shit they have up on the wall, and everyone gathers around and they like release the bulls by ripping ripping up the rope. And Snappy, like you said, comes in like Michael Jordan, just fucking going for it.
But from the
And
no one thought. They came in from the side and everyone was like, "No, you can't do that. You can't do that." And he's like, "There's no rules here, dude. There's no one said you can't do this." Yeah, and Air Snappy, dude. He got the jacket.
Do you know what jacket that he was going for?
Yeah, it was like kind of like a souvenir jacket. It had like a tiger on the back. It wasn't even that. Honestly, it was like it was like not even that big of a deal. He's just such a maniac that like he has to get everything. But I don't think the jacket was even that big of a deal. But he just had to be. He's like, I'm getting that jacket. I'm fucking.
Getting that jacket. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Brian cracks me up. He's coming on the show. I've like tried to set up the times with him. We've been like having this.
He's busy. He's
scheduling.
way busier than I am. Way busier. So he'll do it. But
Yeah,
he's just
no,
a
he's
busy
stoked
guy.
to get on here. He cracks me up, man. At the Durango Fest, He
Yep.
didn't. So Snappy didn't want to get his like expensive work boots dirty. So what he did was he went to Walmart and bought like the
Oh.
worst pair of like dad hospital shoes, and he's
Dude,
wearing like
he had the Snappies on, dude. He was wearing the Air. That's the Air Snappies. Dude, they were like Walmart brand sneakers. They were so whack. And he was clowned, like multiple people clowned him, and I was like, dude, this is so funny. They're like, what the fuck are those? Yeah,
Totally,
dude, that
dude.
was that.
It was
he was
hilarious.
getting clowned on those. It was
And
awesome.
I was like, well, first of all, work boots are meant for like, stomping around in the dirt, really. But
yeah.
also, yeah, it just looked so funny, like Velcro hospital shoes. He's just rocking them, but with his fit, it was the contrast of the fit because Snappy dresses.
Yeah, he's got like
nice.
double X on, like a dope rayon shirt, and then he's got like these corny ass shoes on.
Oh man.
But he's a good sport though. Like he takes it in stride. Like he knows it's dumb, but he's like, dude, I don't want to get like my good boots dirty because like he's got like $3,000 boots. He's like, I'm not running around in the dirt in those. Like, so he just wears this bullshit. Yeah, makes sense.
And Durango was a dirt fest for sure. Great time.
100%. I ruined my Birkenstocks. They were so gross after that. I can't wear. I've been unable to wear that pair since then. It was just hot. And they're sandy. I got all ground in. Anyways, enough info. Yeah, it was gross.
We're getting to a part of the show where I ask everybody a set of questions. Okay.
Yep.
So I want to know, who is your GOAT? Speaking of Air Snappy, Air Jordan, who is your GOAT of the vintage business? This could be like somebody who mentored you, or like somebody who you just think is doing it really well, and you can name a male and a female if you want.
Oh, well, for female, 100%. Do you know who Liz Baca is?
Hell yeah.
Busy lady. So me and Liz have been friends since mid-90s because we came up in the rave game together.
No way.
Liz Baca. Well, first of all, I was like in love with her. She's beautiful. But then we just became friends. And we've been friends ever since. You
got put in the friend zone.
Well, it just happened that way. But she is hardworking. She knows her shit. She's an incredible woman. So she would be top of my list, 100%.
Yeah, I know Liz well from years of Rose Ball, and we've hung out with them a lot. She is a great person. She's a great person.
Michael as well. Yeah,
yeah, we do for sure.
They're good people. So we've been in the biz, or in just friends for so long, and she's just always good people. She knows her business. She's a hard worker. So I'd have her up there. As far as like on the dude side, I mean, there's like Ben that I told you about earlier that was in the business in the late 80s and the 90s. Ben Baskins, he taught me a lot. These days, though, I mean, there's a lot of guys, but I mean, I'm telling you, like pound for pound, Brian is up there, man. He gets better shit than most people. I mean, period. He just does. And I know there's a lot of other guys that get a lot of good stuff, but I see a lot that he gets that probably other people don't see, and he gets a lot of crazy stuff. A lot of crazy stuff. And I don't know what something is. He's my call. And David's usually number 2.
Everybody needs
those guys
someone
are my
like
friends,
that.
and they'll just tell me. Like, they're not going, oh, well, what do you want for it? Like, they don't pull that. They're just like, it's worth it, So those are always good people to have, on your side.
Oh, hell yeah. Hell yeah. Okay, great choices. Love it. Next one is, who do you nominate for most underrated? Somebody that maybe doesn't get enough shine for killing it.
I feel like Sam should be. I mean, I know Sam's getting some recognition as of late, but Sam, known Bad Boy, when I first met Sam, he was selling bullshit on Depop, like just junk. I mean, a lot of it. And then in the course of 3 or 4 years, he surpassed all of it. He was like, just buying and selling crazy stuff. And I don't know, like, if he's on that level that a lot of people know about, but he's a heavy hitter. You know what I mean? When I get like a good pair of double X, I'll call him. he'll pay more than my Japanese guys just because he wants them.
Yeah.
So I feel like he might be a little underrated. You know what I mean? And there's probably, and my buddy Patrick in town as well, because he keeps such a low profile. Patrick, you know, is a huge heavy hitter dealer, but doesn't really like, he's not on Instagram. You know, he's just not like a guy that wants to be known, but he's a huge, huge player. So those would probably be my two.
That's awesome. I think it's funny you say like somebody who's not known, like there's too much emphasis. You know, I'm a victim of this too. There's too much emphasis on being known now. Like, yes, one way to run your business is to be known and cultivate your own audience, but then there's also lots of other ways to do it, like be a vendor in a vintage market, or just run an eBay game, or run a game on so many other things. There's so many other ways to do it besides like trying to market your own audience, because that's actually very hard to do.
I feel like that's a lot of what those young bucks, like, you know, for me, it was like it took me so long to acquire a certain level or status or a level of like access to certain buyers. And then now with Instagram, you know, they're just like, they can have that in like 6 months, which took me 6 years, you know, and I'm not like mad. It's just, but part of me is a little mad. I was like, I had to work way harder to get to a point that you guys can just get to real easy, you know, and there's a lot more of them promoting themselves than they're used. When I was coming up, there was a lot less of that, I guess, is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, a lot less. I still think that, I mean, I don't even think it existed really for so many years, but I think now that still holds a lot of value. Like, I don't think these kids, they can probably fast track a lot of it, but you can't fast track all of it, you know? And
sure.
At least I'm hoping so. I don't know.
Well, and also the relationships. I mean, like, big part of why I'm successful is all these relationships I've cultivated. And like, you know, I can, like, if I got into a deal and I didn't have the money, I could make one phone call. I'm like, I need $25,000, and someone would be like, done. You know what I mean? That doesn't happen overnight. You know what I mean? Like, if you just don't have the dough, you know what I mean? Like those kind of relationships take years to cultivate. You know what I mean? Or the person that like you just know will tell you when something's worth. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. So
yeah, totally.
There's something about having those long-term relationships that are very valuable, in my opinion.
Yeah, and they don't come for nothing. They come built on trust, right? And they come built on being a good person. So, you know, treat people as you want to be treated. Treat people with respect. Treat people, you know, don't try to rip people off. Like, if you try to at any point like pull one over on somebody, then they're never going to trust you again. And trust,
especially
is
these
so
days,
important.
I mean, So if you go through this business over decades and you acquire all these great people that trust you, that you would help you help them, you obviously are not a turd. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So to me, that is like what's the most valuable, you know. And I'm not saying these young kids are necessarily like shady, but a lot of them come up so fast and were able to get past hurdles that in my day took a long time. You know what I mean? So it's just different. You know?
Yeah.
Their rise to fame just happened very quickly.
And you know, it's funny though, you've heard the saying, the quicker you rise, the faster you fall, or the harder you'll fall, or whatever, right?
Yep.
And
maybe, yeah.
There is some truth to that, because there's a lot of people that came up through like this pandemic t-shirt craze that are just gone now. They've already left.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's a more natural, organic, and sustainable growth over time than like a super quick rise to stardom or whatever, because you
get more of a foundation. When you do a slow roll, like you build a foundation, but when you just like go I just don't feel like it's like natural. You know what I mean? Like you go from 0 to 60 in like a year, and then like I feel like they get money too fast and they get stupid with it or what. I don't know what they do, but I feel like if I was that age and all of a sudden I had all this dough, I'd probably do some stupid shit.
Yeah, totally.
I do some real stupid shit.
Totally. No, it's all valid. And I think about this sometimes. Like, I read just as an example of this, Patagonia, I think in like the 80s, they had like a few boom years, right? Where they grew like 100% year over year, right?
Holy shit. Wow.
Yeah. And they then something happened, like the economy turned and they like almost had to fucking go out of business because they're like, we grew too
when
fast.
Was this? Like late 80s or early 80s?
I don't remember. I'm pretty sure it's in one of their books I've read because I've read like all the Chouinard books, but
sure.
And then so then it turned and they had to slow down. And then once they finally regained like stability, they were like, we're only going to allow ourselves to grow by a certain amount so that we
so
know
they
we
reined
can.
it in.
They reined it in.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, definitely good lessons in there.
But those, dude, the pandemic was like the perfect storm of like all the Instagram videos, all that free money, all the, all those checks that everybody's getting. Everyone was at home, living at mom and dad's house. And it was just like this storm of t-shirt madness, dude. Where like people were paying like $2,000 for Winnie the Pooh t-shirts and shit, dude.
Yeah, what the fuck?
Right?
Yeah.
Just like, what is even happening, man? Like that whole thing was so bizarre to me. I just was like, what was happening?
I know.
More power to them.
I opened a
If
notebook
they're getting that money
yesterday
for those t-shirts, but like, wow, man, it was crazy.
Well, I took advantage of it, and I got as much money as I could too during that time.
Sure.
I opened a notebook yesterday because I use like these like just whatever notebooks for like my to-do lists and like shit that I got to remember, and I run through all these notebooks. I opened an old one, and when that was happening, I would like do the live auction sometimes. Then I would put all the sales in the notebook to like have to hit people up for money, right? And I was looking at the prices on these, and I'm like, holy fuck. Like, there was, like, and some Pink Floyd shirt for $350. Then there was, like, this other shirt for $400. And I was like, damn, I sold, like, all these crazy shirts in this one, like, hour session during this time. And I was like, fuck, I can't even, like, sell a shirt for, like, $100 right now.
This was on your website, or was it like...
No, this was sales. This was sales, like, just going live on Instagram back when the craze was happening.
And everyone had money, and they were all like, they couldn't go anywhere, so they were just like, and there was like this frenzy, man. It was like a perfect storm.
Crazy.
Yeah. So you're looking back, you're like, I couldn't even get half that for that t-shirt now.
Oh yeah, there was some. We sold like the Magic School Bus, the TV show.
I don't.
It's like a kid's show. It's probably like, I think I'm a little younger than you, so it's like my childhood or even 90s or something. It's just like a shirt with this
stupid
thing, dude. Like $800.
What?
You're like, who's paying this? Are you crazy?
$800 for me is like top. Like that's like my rail t-shirt.
Yeah,
it's so much money for a t-shirt.
Prices were out of whack. So
absolutely.
Speaking of your Grail shirt, this is the next question: is what is like your, say, one Grail that you own, or like the one Grail you're still trying to acquire?
Man. I've got an Eric B. and Rakim paid in full tee. That's a pretty good one.
Hell yeah.
I got a bunch, literally. So they're just folded up in like 2-gallon like Ziploc bags. So they don't, and then I just have them stacked, and there's hundreds of them. But like,
you have hundreds of wrap tees, or just hundreds of tees?
No, I've got hundreds of t-shirts, and like I would say wrap t-shirts probably like 50, 75.
Yeah, okay, still a good number.
And and like I've got like rock t-shirts, rave t-shirts, skate t-shirts, because I've been buying them for like 20 plus years. But as far as like the most pinnacle, that's a tough one, because like there's so many different categories. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I've got an in utero, with like the skeleton, like Nirvana one. That's a high dollar one, but that's not really my favorite. You know what I mean? So it's like, what's the most valuable and what's my favorite are two different things. That makes sense?
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's very valid, because I collect a lot of just what I like. I have a lot of like worthless stuff that I collect, like literally.
Sure. Yeah.
Like
you love it though. You love it.
Yeah.
You like it. Yeah.
These weird skate things that are like non-branded 90s weird goofy skate thing that no one cares about, but I'm like, this is just funny or cool to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I did keep a lot of cool 90s band shirts that I liked of bands that I listened to. And I did listen to Nirvana, of course, but I also was like, it wasn't ever my favorite band. And I'm like, I'm not keeping
Absolutely
it
not.
because it's worth so
Absolutely not.
much. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And most
So
of
I-
those kids that sweat it and collect it and drove the prices up, they weren't even really big fans of music. It's just the imagery and the fact that everyone was so like hyped on it. You know, they're not
Yeah.
like hardcore Nirvana band fans.
No,
You know, it's just
they're
about
not.
like the imagery is cool, the like the graphics are cool, but really it was the hype and like the value, I think, of what really drove it. You know, they're
Yeah.
not going to nerd out and like, oh, what about this like obscure, you know, bootleg? That no, you know, they're not that level of nerd. You know, at least in my opinion. I could be wrong, but
Do you have anything that you're actively hunting for? I know when we get to this stage in our lives and careers, we kind of were like, but do you-
I mean, yeah, I mean, there's definitely like, you know, there's definitely ones. I mean, it's hard to like name one, but here's the thing. It's like normally like when I'm at Rose Bowl or I go to Inspiration, there's t-shirts I want. They're just too expensive. You know what I mean? They're just too expensive.
I have a good segue question that adds to this question. What is your number one eBay search that you type in the search bar? Do you have like a go-to?
No, top 5. I'm always looking for a Big Daddy Kane t-shirt. And they're like impossible. They're impossible. I've had the safe search for like years. And like the closest thing I've come to was this bootleg, like hip hop, like multi-group thing where it just says Big Daddy Kane, a bunch of the other people. Like, I don't even know if he ever sold anything or if he ever sold merch ever. Cause like, I just can't find one.
Wow.
That's high on the list.
Okay, cool.
Too Short t-shirt, always been after that shit. Oh, you know what? A really good one I got, you know, MC8,
There's
right?
definitely, I've seen Too Short t-shirts not too long ago. I feel like they're out there.
They're out there, but the early ones, they always went crazy money.
Yeah.
One good one I found for next to nothing. So you know who MC8 is, right? Like
Yeah.
old school West Coast guy. Do you remember Compass Most Wanted was his earlier group?
Okay. Not like super familiar with that, but
So it's early. It's like pre-NW, like early NWA. So anyways, this dude posted it, and I was like, I'll give you $300 for that t-shirt. He's like, nah, it was at auction. He's like, I'm going to let it ride. I'm like, all right. So I put a bid in. I got that t-shirt for $12.
no way.
Yeah, and then I thought he was going to not sell it to me, and he didn't say a damn word. He packaged it up and shipped it to me. Couldn't believe it. And I was like, I'll give you $300 today, right now. Because I know I'd
you
never
bought
seen
it for $12. Dude, that guy must have been so salty. Oh, God.
Oh, dude, I expected him to be like, yeah, so what about that $300, dude? He didn't say a word. It was crazy. So every once in a while, you just hold tough, man. But no, there's a lot of early hip hop ones. I mean, I wish I could like ring them off right now, but like just weird ones that like you just don't see. And the Big Daddy Kane is definitely on that list.
Nice. Okay, on to the next question. Actually, before I'm just gonna say my grail that I'm looking for on the show, so that if anybody listening has it, they'll sell it to me. I want the burnt orange, like 70s Patagonia deep reverse pile. You know, the one that's like it's the orange color that like,
so not the brown, not the blue. Are we
like
talking the early ones?
Yeah, the early like 70s, like rusty burnt orange color.
So the burgundy or not, or
it's orange.
I've never seen that one.
Okay, well there's
I have the blue, the gray, and the blue. I have those 3 colors, but I haven't seen this orange one before.
Oh yeah, I'll we'll put a picture on this, but there's like there's pictures of Yvonne wearing it. They pop up. It's the more rare of the colorways of like
I love
the original.
the early Patagonia stuff. That's also my jam. So I didn't know that. I'd never seen that one.
Well, now you got a new grail on your list there. There you go.
Yeah, there we go. There we go.
So
add another thing I get.
What's the worst trend currently in the vintage scene?
Well, there seems to be this trend of like, okay, let's say that you went to a thrift store and you gathered like 50 garments shirts, jackets, pants, hats, and you put them into a box and you blindfolded yourself and you shook them up and you dunked the box on the ground and then blindfolded, you just put an outfit on. That's a look. That's how I see it. Literally, that's how I see it. Like, none of it makes any sense. It's like a faux fur jacket with like a vest, and there's like flip-flops with socks or something. I just don't understand. I mean, I'm probably an old fuddy-duddy, but that's how it looks like to be, that like you blindfolded, went into like a closet and just grabbed shit. That would be something that I'm not really feeling. Not feeling that.
Oh, God. As far as style goes, like for a long time, because this t-shirt thing is crazy. Yeah, people would love to wear like these crazy t-shirts, but then just wear like a really bad pair of track pants or like Adidas pants or something so random. And you're like, you can't just wear this shirt without like putting a thoughtful outfit together.
Everything else was an afterthought. You're like, well, I got the tee on, so it doesn't matter what else I'm wearing.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good.
Like, you know, yeah, I see a lot of that as well.
Yeah, it's kind of the same mentality.
It's more of a random hodgepodge of, like, it's so random that you almost like had to think about it. Like, I don't know. It's just, it makes me crazy. Like, it just doesn't make any sense.
There's like, so Jesse used to wear like I'll mix eras. Like I'll often mix eras in my outfit. Like I think that's cool. And if you can do it like in a cool way that
if
works.
You can pull it off, yeah, no problem.
That's like real style. That's like the definition of it. Cause like style doesn't have to be any certain thing. You create it for yourself, but you put together your own look, right?
Yeah,
but it's like being able to do that in a way that's cohesive and looks cool, or else you're just a hodgepodge looking.
Or if you break down each piece, you're like, just because you put this look together and you think it's cohesive, if you break down each piece, like each piece is whack, like neat, like nothing's good. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I try not to judge. I see a lot of that, and I'm like, what is even happening? And then like maybe they think the same about me, but I see a lot of that of like the younger guys in the game wearing very, very bizarre combinations of clothing that I don't get. So,
all right. Your favorite or best trend in the vintage scene currently?
Currently, favorite. Well, you know, like the outdoor stuff is, I mean, it's always been popular, but it seems like a lot of people are like hip to the outdoor stuff, which is kind of like one of my favorite, you know, like I love anything outdoor, puffy, goose down. So I see that. A lot of people wearing like denim with like a lot of repairs and stuff. I'm into that.
Nice.
So I'm into that stuff, you know, but like, I feel like it's a lot of the same as well. You know what I mean? I feel like a lot of the looks and a lot of what people are wearing has been going on for quite a while. Outside of that, like random thing that we talked about, that seems kind of new. But you know, the other one is just like, you know, if you went to like Inspiration 1 and Inspiration 12, like, and the uniforms are about the same. You know what I mean? Like the guys have like the same uniform. The hats got bigger, but like other than that, like they have like the same look on. That makes sense?
Yep.
Have you noticed how the hats got bigger and bigger?
What hats are we talking? Like we're talking like a cowboy vibe or like a?
Well, no. It's more of like a fedora or like one of the cowboy styles. But I had this joke that was like, tomorrow on who wears the biggest hats. Like it was like everyone tried to out hat each other. So like every year there'd be a guy that was like a little bit bigger hat. I feel like it was like a goal, it was like a mission. Like, I'm going to have the most ridiculous vintage hat. Like,
Rin
every year
can give an award for the most ridiculous hat at the next Inspiration.
I swear to you, there was always one guy that was like out-hatting everybody. So at least that was my observation.
See, I'm a victim of watching Yellowstone. Did you ever watch that show?
A little bit, yeah.
And now I really just want to get a good cowboy hat and fucking yeehaw, man.
Just get us, you know, Stetson. The more X's, the better, apparently, from what I understand. That's so costumey, though. It's like, unless you're actually like doing some cowboy shit, You kind of just look like
I
you
know.
look like you have a
That's
costume on.
That's why I haven't done
Yeah.
it. It's so costumey.
Yeah.
But I'm like, but now I even want to go actually ride some horses now. I'm like, they're living the life, man.
Yeah, well, riding horses. I grew up in Kentucky, so riding horses is fun. I mean, I never owned them or anything, but growing up, you just do something to do. I've got aunts and uncles and cousins that have horses, so I go back. You get on one, you're like, all right, I get it, I'm on it, but I don't like it enough to like make it a lifestyle. I'm not gonna like have them. Like I don't want to. I'm not gonna own horses.
Yeah, not ready for that commitment. Not ready for that commitment.
Yeah,
So this is kind of a shout out question. If you could pick like your top 3 people that you'd want to go on like a picking trip or a digging trip or a sourcing trip, who would you bring?
And I mean, people outside of my circle or just people in my circle?
Well, I mean, maybe you can't pick like the people you'd want to pick for like a vacation because they're gonna try to snipe all the denim. I don't know. Who would you pick?
I mean, Liz would be a first pick because her and I are on such different things. She picks like only women's so we would get along great. You know what I mean?
So her Instagram is called Busy Lady Baka. That's what it's called, right?
Yeah.
Everybody go follow.
Dude, she knows, dude. She is cold, man. She knows her stuff.
And she's awesome because she also she fully is in women's wear on a level that most people don't even understand or will ever understand.
Like designer stuff, and she does like movie, commercial. She does like, dude, she's on some next level stuff that a lot of people like don't even get. Yeah. So, but her and I have picked together many times over the years, and we never we never step on toes because I'm just like men's section, she's a women's section, and then we'll meet back up and then we'll look at what we have, and that's the perfect picking partner.
Yeah.
If you're with someone that wants the same stuff you do, the only way to do it fair is to go, whatever you get and I get is cool. If one of us finds something of high dollar, we have to split it. Otherwise, one person's butthurt.
For sure.
So if you're finding $10, $20, $30 items and then each person that's yours. You find something that's like $500, $1,000, we split that. That's the only way to do it fair. And that's worked for me over the years. I've done that with many friends.
Oh, really? Okay, cool.
Yeah. If you find a pair of Big E's or something on the rack and then I'm just finding like bullshit or whatever, we have to split that. Otherwise, it's just like there's something not quite right about the day. Yeah, but you agree upon that early,
For sure. I mean, I think that's a great way to do it. And I worked with my brother, so we would do a lot of trips. You and
your brother have been doing this. You guys must have been on tons of pics together.
Oh, yeah.
It's always been for the business.
Well, yeah, because eventually we joined, right?
Yeah,
and in the early days, it was only a couple years that we were picking for ourselves. And if we ever did a pick, we would split it, and it was for the business. But then eventually we just fully joined. So now it's like if you find shit, we split it. If I find shit, we split it. And we both kind of have different roles in the company. But
sure,
I never had like other picking friends that would do trips with. And like oftentimes my homies that were just my friends outside of Vintage would find stuff. And then they'd just like, Drew, I got some cool shit. You want to buy it? I'd be like, I'd just give them a good price for it because they're my homies.
Sure.
But
they didn't find it out with you, though. They found it on their own.
No, they would be like finding it on their own and just
if you were like out on a picnic trip together, like a fun, like, hey, we're on a road trip or we're stopping at this like thrift store. It's like then you have to be like, come on, we're gonna split this up, just
for sure.
Just, like,
and
work.
I think I kind of wanted to ask that to Kyle last week's podcast guest because I was like, you're doing these bando things with all these guys. Like,
he's with people, right? There's no way he's doing it by himself.
No, he does it with people, and I'm pretty sure they got to split it. Otherwise, how would that be fair at all? So, I never asked that question. Yeah.
Oh, you never asked it? Okay.
No, I never asked the question.
He'd be out of it. To do that by yourself is so dangerous on so many levels. One, you could fall through a floor and break a leg. Two, guy pulls a gun. I mean, there's so many things that can go wrong on those trips. So smart to run with like 3 or 4 guys on something like that. You're less likely to get into trouble.
Have you ever done that?
Never did it. I'm too old to do it now. I mean, if I knew about it in my 20s, 100% do it. But I'm like, I just turned 47. There's no way in hell I'm doing that shit. No way. I'd rather try to get a hold of the person that owns the property and ask permission. I'm not breaking into a house. But
Yeah,
more power to
we
them.
found a place last summer on the way to Faded, which was like out in the East Coast, and it was locked. And you can tell there was like too much activity on the property, that this was not like fully abandoned. Like the house was abandoned, but there was people using the property. I tried to go to the neighbors and like knock on the door and shit, and they never answered. So I'm like, what the fuck are we going to do? Like, we're leaving.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean,
I saw clothes in the window, though. I was like staring at a closet full
really?
of fucking old clothes.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It's tough, man. But like, from what I've heard, like Ricky Causey and like Smokestack, they told me stories where they're like, their rule of thumb was like, when we find a property, if we have to break in, we don't do it. If it says no trespassing, we don't do it. But he's like, most of the time, either the door's open or there's no door. Like it's just the door's gone. And he's like, because people have already been in and out of this property over years.
Yeah.
And the clothes is the last thing people grab. They're looking for collectibles, coins, metal, whatever. They're not looking for clothes. So the clothes are just moved out of the way, looking for other stuff. And they might be the 50th person that's been in that house. But yeah, they're like, we never break doors, we never break windows, which is smart, I mean, because, but yeah, they said that it just got too risky. They had too many close calls, with people like, not to say pulling guns, but, people, they got too risky.
No, it's definitely happened. I've heard of people getting guns put on them. I heard of a couple kids getting arrested.
Yeah, I heard about that too. I've heard that multiple times, actually.
Yeah.
What I haven't heard is someone getting shot, actually, like either killed or hurt. Because you're in the middle of Missouri and in a house and some dude, they'll shoot you.
Yeah.
So I hope that doesn't happen. I hope
that shooting probably in court would just be like could potentially be looked at as like self-defense or like a trespassing thing, and you're not gonna. I don't exactly know what the law says on all that, but each state is different.
Down south where I grew up, if someone's like, he was on my property, you basically have the right to shoot somebody. I mean, I can't say that 100%, but from my understanding, as the way people see things down there, you'd probably be in the right to do that. Well, you shouldn't have done it, but I just worry that I worry someone's going to get hurt in doing it. Is what I'm saying. I hope not.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Okay, well, we're going to end it there. Do you have any last words or shout outs, people, or anything you want to say?
Well, I want to give a shout out to David, good by heart, because, he kind of put a good word in for me. He's, one of my oldest, bestest vintage homies.
I know
dude.
Good by heart. I don't know him personally very well, but I've seen him at all the events, and he always has the crazy hippie jackets. This guy is always coming up on
North Beach. He's the guy. He's the guy.
Yeah, he's the guy.
At one point, he had like 100+ East-West jackets. I mean, like when they were going for real money. He was the guy. Family man. He's just an overall solid dude. So, anyways, he's one of my good friends. So, and I know you reached out to him, and he put a few good words in for me, maybe a few bad ones or whatever. But I just want to give shouts out to him. So.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you for coming on the show, and I'll see you at Inspiration, my man. All right, everybody. Hope you enjoyed that. I enjoyed recording it. Thanks, Aaron, for coming on the show. As always, if you want to go shop, FSandFrankVintage.com, 30% off with code VTG and stuff. Going to put that on the screen here for you. Make sure you go follow me on Instagram at Drew Heifetz. Follow my guest at Welcome Home Vintage. And if you want to support the show, please go sign up for the Patreon. Every week I drop exclusive content on there just for members, and it helps me create this show every week for you guys. Thanks again, and see you on the next one.